The night Seraphina Vale discovered her husband called her decorative, she made a decision that would burn Blackthorn to its foundations. Standing outside Dominic Valieri's office, listening to his men laugh at the worthless wife he'd bought with her father's debt, something inside her stopped bleeding and started sharpening. This isn't a love story. This is war dressed in wedding vows. A story about a woman who learned that revenge tastes sweeter when served with compound interest. Stay until the end. Hit like. Drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. You won't believe where this goes. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and broken promises. Seraphina Vale sat in a plastic chair bolted to the floor, watching her father sign away her entire existence with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Gerald Vale had always been a weak man, but she'd never understood just how weak until that Tuesday afternoon when he traded her life for breathing room on a debt he'd gambled into the six figures. It's just paperwork, sweetheart. His voice cracked around the edges. He's a businessman, successful. You'll be comfortable. Comfortable. As if comfort could fill the hole where her future used to be. The man sitting across from them didn't look like a businessman. Dominic Valieri looked like violence wrapped in a $1,000 suit. Black hair swept back from a face that could have been handsome if it wasn't so cold. Eyes like steel that hadn't bothered to meet hers once in the 30 minutes they'd been waiting. He scrolled through his phone with the bored efficiency of someone picking up dry cleaning. Not a wife. Dry cleaning. Mr. Valieri. The court clerk appeared with a clipboard and the kind of tired smile that said she'd seen worse. We're ready for you. Dominic stood without a word. Didn't offer his hand. Didn't acknowledge Seraphina existed. Her father squeezed her shoulder. Be good to him, Sarah. Make this work. She wanted to spit in his face. Instead, she stood and followed the stranger who'd just become her husband into a room that felt more like a prison than a beginning. The ceremony lasted 12 minutes. 12 minutes to destroy 24 years of a life she'd been trying to build back from nothing. She'd been 3 semesters away from finishing her finance degree before her father's gambling debts got so bad she'd had to drop out and work double shifts at a hotel downtown just to keep their apartment. 3 semesters away from a future that actually belonged to her. Now she was getting 12 minutes and a signature. The officiant droned through the legal requirements with all the passion of someone reading a grocery list. Dominic's voice was flat when he said, I do. Seraphina's throat felt like sandpaper when her turn came. No vows, no rings, no kiss. Just ink on paper and the sound of the door closing behind them. In the hallway, Dominic finally looked at her, studied her the way someone might study a chair they weren't sure would fit in their living room. A car will take you to the penthouse, he said. Your things will be moved tonight. There are rules. Antonio will explain them. Rules. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Rules, he confirmed. Then he turned and walked away, phone already back against his ear, Italian spilling out in rapid-fire syllables that sounded like artillery. Seraphina stood there in her cheap dress from a department store clearance rack and watched her husband disappear around the corner. She didn't cry. She'd run out of tears 3 months ago when the loan sharks started showing up at their door. The car was black and anonymous. The driver, Antonio presumably, was built like a wall with eyes that tracked everything and revealed nothing. He held the door open without speaking. Seraphina slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe and tried to remember how to breathe. Blackthorn blurred past the tinted windows. The city looked different from inside a car that cost more than most people made in a year. Cleaner, more distant, like watching a movie of someone else's life. The penthouse was on the 47th floor of a building made of glass and steel and money. Antonio led her through a lobby where doormen in uniform nodded with practiced deference, into an elevator with mirrors that reflected a girl who looked lost, felt lost, was lost. The doors opened onto a private foyer. Your rooms are to the left, Antonio said. First words he'd spoken. His accent was thick, vowels rounded by something Eastern European. Mr. Valieri's office and private quarters are to the right. You don't go right. Understood? Understood. He pulled out a black credit card and set it on the marble console table. For expenses. Food, clothes, whatever you need. Statements go to Mr. Valieri. Be reasonable. Be reasonable. As if she had any frame of reference for what reasonable meant in a world where people bought wives to settle gambling debts. Antonio left without another word. Seraphina stood in the foyer of her new prison and tried to catalog the feelings spreading through her chest. Not quite fear, not quite rage, something colder, something that felt like the moment before a storm breaks. Her rooms, her cage, sprawled across what must have been 2,000 square feet. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Blackthorn's glittering skyline, designer furniture that looked uncomfortable to sit on, abstract art that probably cost more than her father's debt. Everything white and gray and expensive and empty. A bedroom with a bed big enough for 4 people but meant for 1. An attached bathroom with more marble and gold fixtures and a shower that could fit a small family. A walk-in closet currently empty except for the few boxes someone had already delivered. Her entire life packed into 4 cardboard containers. She didn't unpack. Instead, she stood at the window and watched the city breathe below her. Watched cars crawl like insects through streets that suddenly felt very far away. Watched lights blink on as the sun burned down behind buildings that cut the sky into pieces. This was supposed to be her wedding night. She laughed. It came out sharp and broken and wrong. 3 weeks passed before she saw Dominic again. 3 weeks of wandering marble hallways like a ghost. 3 weeks of ordering takeout because the massive kitchen intimidated her with its professional equipment and empty refrigerator. 3 weeks of Antonio delivering packages, new clothes she hadn't ordered, jewelry she didn't wear, things accumulating like evidence of a life she wasn't living. Dominic was a shadow that came home after midnight and left before dawn. She knew he was there by the coffee cup left in the sink, the bathroom light on when it had been off, the faint smell of his cologne lingering in air that felt heavy with his absence. She started sleeping irregular hours just to catch a glimpse of the stranger she'd married. It felt pathetic. It was pathetic, but she needed to understand what she was dealing with, needed to map the boundaries of this cage and figure out where the weak spots were. On day 22, she saw him in the kitchen at 2 in the morning. He was standing at the counter in a white shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows, tie loosened, reading something on his phone with the kind of focus that suggested violence was involved. There was blood on his cuff. Not a lot, just enough to notice. Seraphina froze in the doorway. He looked up. Those steel eyes tracked across her like she was an interruption he hadn't budgeted time for. "You're awake." Not a question, an observation that sounded like an accusation. "I live here." Her voice came out with more edge than she'd intended. Something flickered across his face. Might have been amusement, hard to tell. "You do." Silence stretched between them like broken glass. "The clothes fit?" He went back to his phone. "Yes." "Good." That was it. That was the entire conversation. He poured himself a scotch, left the kitchen, and disappeared back into whatever dark corner of this penthouse he occupied. Seraphina stood there, feeling like an idiot for thinking he might actually speak to her like a human being. She started mapping his patterns after that. Started understanding the architecture of her new existence through the negative space Dominic carved around himself. He kept irregular hours but always came home. Never brought anyone back with him. No women, no business associates, nobody. The right side of the penthouse stayed locked and off limits. Antonio checked in daily with the same 3 questions. Did she need anything? Was she comfortable? Any problems? She always said no. Problems felt like a trap. Comfortable felt like a lie. Need felt like weakness. On day 37, she found the library. It was tucked behind what she'd assumed was a closet door, but when she finally worked up the courage to explore, she found floor-to-ceiling bookshelves crammed with everything from philosophy to true crime to financial textbooks that looked like they'd actually been read. This was Dominic's space. Had to be. The books were organized with the kind of precision that suggested someone who valued control, but he'd never said this room was off limits. Seraphina pulled a book on market analysis from the shelf and settled into a leather chair that smelled like smoke and expensive cologne. For the first time in over a month, something felt like hers. She started spending days in that library, started working through the finance textbooks she'd abandoned when her life imploded, started remembering what it felt like to be good at something, to have a brain that worked and ambitions that mattered, and a future that might exist outside these walls. The books on organized crime caught her attention next. Histories of power structures and criminal enterprises and the architecture of empires built on fear. She read about men like Dominic, men who traded in violence and loyalty and silence, men who married for strategy, not love. She was studying her enemy. She just didn't know it yet. On day 49, she overheard the conversation that changed everything. It was past midnight. She'd fallen asleep in the library with a book on offshore investments open in her lap. Voices woke her, low, masculine, coming from somewhere close. Dominic's office was on the other side of the wall. Handling it personally, someone was saying, deep voice, unfamiliar. You always handle it personally. That was Dominic. She'd recognize that cold precision anywhere. That's why you're still alive. Laughter. Male bonding built on bodies. What about the wife? A third voice. Younger. She's settling in? Silence. The kind that makes your skin crawl. She's decorative. Dominic's voice was flat, matter of fact, like he was describing furniture. Nothing underneath the surface, just another debt wrapped in silk. Might as well be a piece of art on the wall for all the difference she makes. More laughter. Agreement. The easy cruelty of men who'd never had to think about what their words cost. At least she's pretty, the younger voice offered. Pretty's cheap, Dominic said. Pretty doesn't matter. Seraphina sat in that leather chair with her heart trying to climb out through her throat, and felt something inside her chest crack open and start bleeding differently. Not sadness. Not anymore. Rage. Pure, crystallized rage that tasted like battery acid and felt like waking up. She'd spent 49 days trying to be invisible, trying to be convenient, trying to be the kind of wife that wouldn't cause problems for a man who'd bought her like furniture. And he thought she was decorative. Nothing underneath the surface. Just debt wrapped in silk. She sat there until the voices faded and doors closed and silence settled back over the penthouse like ash. Then she stood on legs that felt steadier than they had in months and walked back to her empty bedroom. She didn't cry. Crying was for women who still believed anything might change through tears. Seraphina opened her laptop, the expensive one Antonio had delivered without explanation, and started researching. Not aimlessly, not desperately, methodically, like she was preparing for war because she was. If Dominic Valieri wanted decorative, she'd give him decorative. But underneath the surface, she was going to become the most dangerous woman he'd ever ignored. She started with the credit card. Not to shop, to build. The statements went to Dominic, Antonio had said, so she made sure every purchase looked exactly like what a decorative wife would buy. Designer clothes, expensive skincare, art gallery memberships, charity donations to causes that looked generous and vapid and perfectly calculated to bore anyone reading the list. But underneath, she was moving money. Small amounts at first. Setting up investment accounts through platforms that specialized in anonymity. Learning how to hide transactions inside transactions. How to build wealth that couldn't be traced back to a credit card statement that said luxury handbag. She'd been 3 semesters away from a finance degree. 3 semesters away from understanding how money actually moved through the world. Now she had time and motivation and nothing to lose. She went back to the library every day, devoured the finance textbooks, studied the books on organized crime like they were instruction manuals, started understanding how Dominic's world worked, not through violence, but through the money violence generated. The shell companies and offshore accounts and legitimate businesses that laundered dirty cash into clean investments. He thought she was decorative. She was going to become indispensable. 3 months after their wedding, Seraphina had $15,000 in hidden accounts and a working understanding of market manipulation that would have made her professors proud. 6 months in, she'd turned that $15,000 into $42,000. 8 months in, she stopped sleeping through the nights and started spending them in the library with financial reports from companies connected to Dominic's name, learning his portfolio, understanding his weaknesses, mapping the architecture of an empire he thought she was too stupid to notice. She saw him rarely, spoke to him less. They existed in the same space like planets in different orbits, never quite colliding, never quite connecting. He still came home after midnight, still left before dawn, still thought she was decorative. One night in month 9, Antonio found her in the library at 3 a.m. with market reports spread across the desk and coffee going cold in a mug she'd forgotten existed. Mrs. Valieri. He stood in the doorway like a wall with opinions. You should sleep. I'm fine. You look tired. She looked up from a spreadsheet tracking suspicious cash flows through a construction company in the warehouse district. Do you report everything I do to him? Antonio's expression didn't change. I report what matters. And this doesn't matter? A wife reading books? Something might have been amusement in his eyes. Hard to tell. No, Mrs. Valieri, that doesn't matter. She went back to the spreadsheet. Good. He lingered for a moment, then, be careful. Of what? Of thinking you're invisible. He left before she could ask what that meant, but she thought about it for days after. Thought about invisibility and attention and the strange freedom that came from being underestimated. Dominic thought she was decorative. Antonio thought she was careless. Neither of them understood she was becoming something else entirely. She met Celeste Arden by accident at a charity gala she'd been told to attend. One of those glittering nightmares where rich people pretended to care about causes between glasses of champagne that cost more than most people's rent. Seraphina had worn the expected uniform, expensive dress, expensive jewelry, expensive smile, and played the expected role. Decorative, forgettable, the pretty wife of a powerful man whose name people whispered but never spoke too loud. She was standing near the bar, watching wealthy women pretend to eat canapes, when someone spoke next to her. You're bored. Seraphina turned. The woman was older, maybe 50, with silver hair cut sharp and eyes that looked like they'd seen through better liars. Excuse me? You're bored, the woman smiled, not friendly, assessing. And you're angry. Interesting combination. You don't know me. I know women like you. She extended a hand. Celeste Arden. The name meant something. Seraphina couldn't remember what, but it meant something. Seraphina Valieri. The name still felt wrong in her mouth. Dominic's wife. Celeste's smile sharpened. I heard he got married. Didn't believe it until now. Why not? Because Dominic Valieri doesn't do anything without calculating every angle. Marriage seemed too human for him. She paused. But you're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone weaker. The words landed like a challenge. Seraphina met her eyes. You don't know me. No, Celeste agreed. But I'd like to. She pulled a card from her clutch and pressed it into Seraphina's hand. Heavy cardstock. Expensive. Just a name and a phone number. Call me when you're ready to stop being decorative, Celeste said. Then she disappeared back into the crowd like smoke. Seraphina stood there with the card burning against her palm and wondered if invisibility was finally starting to crack. She called the number 3 days later. They met in a coffee shop in a neighborhood Seraphina didn't recognize. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just tables and coffee and the kind of anonymity that came from nobody caring who you were. Celeste was already there when Seraphina arrived. She gestured to the chair across from her. I wasn't sure you'd come. I wasn't sure I would either. Seraphina sat. What do you want? Direct? Good. Celeste sipped her coffee. I want to know what you're planning. I'm not planning anything. Liar. No heat in it, just observation. You're Dominic Valieri's invisible wife. You show up at a charity gala looking like you'd rather burn the building down than make small talk. You're either planning something or you should be. Seraphina's throat felt tight. Why do you care? Because I turn overlooked women into forces people can't ignore. It's what I do. Celeste leaned forward. And you, Seraphina Valieri, are the most overlooked woman I've met in years. You're a strategist, political strategist. I build campaigns and destroy reputations and make sure the right people end up in the right rooms with the right words. She smiled. And I think you could be very right if someone taught you how. Taught me what? How to be dangerous. The word hung in the air between them like a promise. Seraphina thought about Dominic calling her decorative. Thought about 49 days of trying to be invisible. Thought about the woman she used to be before her father's weakness destroyed everything. What would that cost? Your comfort, Celeste said. Your safety. Any illusion that your life is going to get easier. She paused. And probably your marriage, if we're being honest. My marriage is already over. It never started. Then you have nothing to lose. Seraphina looked at this woman who promised danger, like other people promised happiness, and felt something shift in her chest. When do we start? Celeste smiled. We already have. The training was brutal, not physically. Celeste didn't teach her how to fight or shoot or any of the things movies suggested powerful women needed. She taught her how to control a room with nothing but posture and silence, how to make eye contact that communicated I see through you without saying a word, how to speak with precision, not more words but better ones, how to dress not for beauty but for authority, how to walk into spaces like she owned them even when she didn't. Men like Dominic respect power, Celeste explained during one of their sessions. They were in her office, all glass and steel and quiet intimidation. Not beauty, not kindness, power. You want him to see you? Make yourself powerful. I don't have power. You have exactly as much power as you're willing to take. Seraphina spent hours practicing her voice until it lost the apologetic softness. Spent days learning how to stand without fidgeting, how to sit without shrinking, how to exist in space without apologizing for taking up room. Celeste was merciless. Again. Again. But do you want to be decorative or do you want to be dangerous? Because right now you're still apologizing for breathing. It took 3 months before Celeste nodded approval. Better, she said. Now you're starting to look like someone worth fearing. Seraphina had been married to Dominic for 11 months and had maybe spoken 100 words to him total, but she was ready to make him notice. The Sovereign Gala was 3 weeks away, the biggest night in Blackthorn's criminal underworld disguised as charity. Everyone who mattered would be there, every alliance, every rivalry, every power player pretending they weren't exactly what they were. That's your debut, Celeste said. Dominic will be there. I'm counting on it. He'll be with someone. Seraphina had seen the gossip sites, seen photos of her husband with actresses and models and women who looked like they belonged on his arm. Even better, Celeste said. Let him bring her. You show up alone and own the room. Make him realize what he's been ignoring. And if he gets angry, then you've already won. Seraphina's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs. I don't know if I can do this. Celeste leaned forward. Her eyes were hard. You can, because the alternative is spending the rest of your life being decorative, being nothing, being the invisible wife everyone ignores. Is that what you want? No? Then stop being afraid of being seen. The gala was in 2 weeks. Seraphina stood in front of her closet trying on different versions of dangerous and wondering if confidence could be faked long enough to become real. Her phone buzzed. Antonio's name on the screen. Mr. Valieri requests your presence at dinner tonight, 8 p.m., dining room. She stared at the message. They'd never had dinner together, not once in almost a year of marriage. Why? The response came fast. He didn't say. Of course he didn't. Seraphina showed up at 8 wearing simple black pants and a silk blouse. Nothing special, nothing that suggested she'd spent 3 months learning how to weaponize her presence. Dominic was already seated when she arrived, still in his suit from whatever violence had filled his day. He glanced up when she entered. Sit. Not a greeting, a command. She sat. A woman appeared with plates, someone's idea of Italian food, expensive and carefully arranged. Seraphina didn't recognize her. Another invisible employee in a penthouse full of them. They ate in silence for 5 minutes. Then Dominic spoke. Antonio says you've been going out. Her pulse jumped. Is that against the rules? I didn't say that. Then why bring it up? His eyes flicked to hers. Cold assessment. Because I want to know where my wife goes. Your wife, as if she was property he'd misplaced. Coffee shops, libraries, normal places. Nothing's normal in Blackthorn. Then I guess I'm adapting. Something shifted in his expression. He set down his fork. The gala is next week. I know. You weren't planning to attend. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. No. Good. The word landed like a fist. Seraphina felt heat crawl up her throat, felt that crack in her chest from 9 months ago split wider. Why good? Because it's not your world. It's not my world? Her voice came out sharper than intended. I'm your wife. You're a name on a contract. He picked up his fork again, went back to his food like the conversation was over. The gala is business. You'd be uncomfortable.
You mean I'd be embarrassing? He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw it, the complete lack of interest, the absence of anything resembling curiosity or care. She was decorative, nothing underneath, just debt wrapped in silk. I mean, you'd be out of place, he said finally. Seraphina stood. Her chair scraped loud against marble. I'll stay home then. Wouldn't want to make you uncomfortable.
She left before he could respond, left her food half-eaten and her dignity somewhere on the floor, and walked back to her empty rooms with hands that shook from rage instead of fear. She called Celeste from the bathroom with the door locked and water running to cover her voice. He told me not to come to the gala. Perfect. Perfect? Now you have a reason to show up that isn't about him. It's about you. Celeste's voice was steady, certain. This is what we've been building towards, Seraphina. Don't back down now. What if I'm not ready? No one's ever ready. But you're dangerous enough, trust me. Seraphina looked at herself in the mirror, saw a woman who'd spent a year disappearing and 3 months learning how to exist again. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Okay. Good. Now let's pick a dress that'll stop his heart. The gala was Saturday night. Seraphina spent the week preparing like she was going to war, because she was. The dress arrived Friday afternoon, midnight black, backless, cut to move like smoke. Celeste had chosen it. Celeste had chosen everything. The shoes, the jewelry, simple, expensive, impossible to ignore. Even the way she'd wear her hair, sleek, severe. No softness anywhere. You're not showing up as his wife, Celeste had said. You're showing up as yourself. Someone he doesn't know yet. Someone he should have been afraid of all along. Saturday came too fast and not fast enough. Dominic left the penthouse at 6, didn't say goodbye, didn't acknowledge she existed. Seraphina watched him go and felt nothing. That was growth. She got ready slowly, methodically. The dress slid on like armor. The shoes added 3 inches and made her feel like she was standing on knife points. The makeup was darker than she usually wore. Dramatic eyes, red lips, nothing subtle. She looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. That was the point. Antonio was waiting by the elevator when she emerged. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Mrs. Valieri. Don't say it. Say what? Whatever warning you're about to give me. He studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Bring the car around. Mrs. Valieri is attending the gala, after all. He ended the call and looked at her. Be careful. Of what? Of winning. The car ride felt like driving toward an execution. Seraphina sat in the back of the black sedan with her heart trying to punch through her ribs and her hands folded in her lap to keep them from shaking. Every block closer to the venue felt like the universe giving her one more chance to turn around. She didn't turn around. The Sovereign Gala was held in one of Blackthorn's oldest hotels, the kind of place where crystal chandeliers cost more than houses and history soaked into the walls like blood. The entrance was clogged with expensive cars and expensive people, and the kind of security that suggested everyone inside was exactly as dangerous as they pretended not to be. Her driver pulled up to the entrance. A valet opened her door. Seraphina stepped out onto red carpet and flashbulbs, and the sudden weight of attention from people who'd never seen Dominic Valieri's wife before. Someone whispered her name. Someone else pulled out a phone. She walked through the doors like Celeste had taught her, spine straight, chin level, eyes forward. Didn't rush, didn't hesitate. Just moved through space like she had every right to occupy it. The ballroom was exactly as obscene as she'd expected. Gold everything. Flowers that cost more than her father's monthly rent. People dripping in wealth and violence and the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about consequences. She paused at the top of the staircase. Below, the party swirled like a beautiful disease. Conversations and laughter and the clink of glasses, and underneath it all the current of danger that came from putting too many predators in one room. She scanned the crowd, found Dominic immediately. He was near the bar with a blonde woman in a gold dress who looked like she'd been poured into it, laughing at something someone said. Relaxed in a way Seraphina had never seen him. Her chest tightened, then he looked up. Their eyes met across 50 feet of expensive air. She watched his expression freeze, watched recognition hit, watched shock bleed into something else. Confusion maybe, or anger, hard to tell from this distance. Seraphina smiled. Not warm, not apologetic. Dangerous. Then she descended the staircase alone and walked directly toward the one group of people she knew would make Dominic's blood pressure spike. The Moretti family was holding court near the windows. Salvatore Moretti, legendary crime boss, Dominic's biggest rival, the kind of man who smiled while ordering executions, stood surrounded by his lieutenants like a king with his court. Seraphina walked straight toward him. Behind her, she felt Dominic's attention like heat against her back. She didn't turn around. Salvatore noticed her approach. His eyes tracked down, then up, then settled on her face with the kind of interest that made her skin crawl and her spine straighten. "Well," he said, voice like gravel mixed with honey. "I don't believe we've met." Seraphina Vale. She extended her hand. Let him take it. Let him hold it a second too long. His smile sharpened. Vale, Dominic's wife. That word dropped into the conversation like a grenade. Several heads turned. Conversations paused. Salvatore's smile became a grin. His wife. How fascinating. I didn't know Dominic had such excellent taste. He doesn't. Seraphina pulled her hand back. I made myself excellent despite him. Someone laughed. One of the lieutenants. Salvatore studied her with new interest. You're not what I expected. No one ever is. I like you already, he said. Then, to the group. Gentlemen, allow me to introduce Mrs. Valieri, though I suspect she's far more interesting than her last name suggests. They talked business for 20 minutes. Real business. Not the polite nothing conversation men usually aimed at women they considered decorative. They talked about offshore investments and shell companies and the financial architecture that held criminal empires together. They asked her opinion on market trends. They listened when she answered. And Seraphina, who'd spent a year being invisible and 3 months becoming dangerous, answered with the kind of precision that made powerful men pause and reconsider. Across the room, she felt Dominic watching. She didn't look back. When Salvatore finally excused himself, he leaned close enough to whisper, You're wasted on Dominic Valieri. If you ever want a better arrangement, call me. He pressed a card into her hand. Seraphina smiled. I'll keep that in mind. She spent the rest of the evening working the room like Celeste had taught her, making connections, remembering names, talking finance and strategy with men who'd probably killed people before breakfast but respected numbers more than violence. By the time midnight approached, half the room knew her name. The other half was wondering who she was. She found Dominic near the exit. The blonde was gone. He was alone, staring at his phone with the kind of focus that suggested he was considering murder. Ready to leave? Seraphina asked. He looked up. His eyes were cold enough to freeze blood. Car's waiting. They didn't speak in the elevator, didn't speak in the car. The silence felt like violence waiting to happen. They made it all the way back to the penthouse before it exploded. Dominic slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. What the hell was that? Seraphina set her clutch on the console table, took off her shoes. What was what? Don't play stupid. You showed up at the gala after I told you not to. You walked straight to Salvatore Moretti. You spent the entire night making me look like an idiot. I made you look like an idiot? She turned to face him. You brought a date to a party where everyone knew you had a wife at home. I just reminded them I exist. You humiliated me. No, Dominic, you humiliated yourself. His jaw worked. You had no right. I had every right. Her voice cut through his like glass. I'm your wife, remember? That contract you signed. That debt you bought. That decorative piece of silk you've been ignoring for a year. Something flickered in his expression. You heard that. I heard everything. She stepped closer, close enough to see the muscle jumping in his jaw, close enough to feel the rage rolling off him like heat. You spent a year pretending I didn't exist. Tonight I reminded you that I do. I reminded everyone that I do. By cozying up to my enemies? By proving I'm more than furniture. They stood there in the foyer of their broken marriage and stared at each other like opponents finally seeing the board. You could have been killed, Dominic said finally, voice low, dangerous. By who? Salvatore? He liked me. That's worse. Why? Because now your rivals see me as valuable instead of irrelevant? She smiled without warmth. You should have thought of that before you called me decorative. His expression shifted. Something almost like regret crossed his face before hardening back to stone. Stay away from the Morettis. Or what? Or I'll make sure you do. There it is. Seraphina laughed, sharp and bitter. The threat, the control. This is what you do, isn't it? Everyone around you is either property or enemy. No in between. That's how you survive. No, Dominic, that's how you die alone. She turned and walked toward her rooms. His voice stopped her at the hallway. What do you want from me? She looked back. This man who'd bought her like furniture. This stranger who'd become her husband without ever becoming anything else. I want you to see me, she said quietly. That's all I've ever wanted. Then she disappeared into her rooms and locked the door and leaned against it with her heart hammering and her hands shaking and the knowledge that everything between them had just changed. The war had finally started. And for the first time since their wedding, Seraphina wasn't sure who would win. The morning after this gala, Seraphina woke to silence that felt like the aftermath of an explosion. She lay in her oversized bed, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment from the night before. Dominic's face when he saw her on the staircase, Salvatore Moretti's interest, the way the room had shifted around her like she'd finally become visible after a year of being a ghost. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Celeste's name lit up the screen. You are magnificent. Call me when you're ready to discuss next steps. Next steps. As if last night was just the beginning. Maybe it was. Seraphina dragged herself out of bed and into the shower, let scalding water beat against her shoulders while her mind raced through possibilities and consequences. Dominic would retaliate. Men like him always did. The only question was how. She dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, armor of a different kind, and emerged from her rooms expecting confrontation. The penthouse was empty. Not just quiet. Empty. Like Dominic had vanished entirely. She found Antonio in the kitchen pouring coffee with the mechanical precision of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. Where is he? Antonio didn't look up. Mr. Valieri had business. He'll be gone most of the day. Did he say anything? About what? About last night. Now Antonio looked at her. His expression was carefully neutral. He said many things, none of them appropriate to repeat. Try me. Mrs. Valieri, try me, Antonio. He set down the coffee pot, studied her face like he was deciding how much truth she could handle. He's angry, very angry, but also... He paused. Confused, I think. You surprised him. Mr. Valieri doesn't like surprises. Good. Good? Antonio's eyebrows rose slightly. Mrs. Valieri, when Mr. Valieri is confused and angry, people tend to get hurt. He won't hurt me. I didn't say he would. But there are other ways to hurt someone, especially someone he's married to. The words landed with uncomfortable weight. Seraphina poured herself coffee. What would you do? If you were me? I'm not you. But if you were... Antonio was quiet for a long moment. Then, I would be very careful about what happens next. You kicked a hornet's nest last night. The hornets will come out eventually. Let them. He shook his head. You're braver than I thought. Or more foolish. Hard to tell which. She took her coffee and retreated to the library. Spent the morning buried in financial reports and market analysis, trying to keep her mind occupied while waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped at 2 p.m. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered anyway. Mrs. Valieri. The voice was smooth, male, vaguely familiar. This is Matteo Rossi. We met briefly at the gala last night. Seraphina's memory shuffled through faces. Tall man, sharp suit, one of Salvatore's lieutenants. I remember. Mr. Moretti would like to extend an invitation. He's hosting a small dinner party this Friday. Very exclusive. He thinks you'd be an excellent addition to the conversation. A dinner party with Salvatore Moretti, with Dominic's biggest rival.
Every alarm bell in her head started ringing. That's very kind, but
Before you decline, Matteo interrupted smoothly, Mr. Moretti asked me to mention that several significant investors will be present, people who are always looking for fresh perspectives on emerging markets. He thought you might find the networking opportunities valuable. Fresh perspectives. Networking opportunities. Translation: they wanted to see what Dominic Valieri's wife knew about his business. I'll think about it. Of course. I'll send the details to this number. We hope to see you there, Mrs. Valieri. He hung up before she could respond. Seraphina stared at her phone like it might explode. This was exactly what Celeste had warned her about. Show up strong at the gala, and the wolves would start circling, prove you had value, and everyone would want to extract it. She called Celeste. They invited me to dinner. Who? The Morettis. Celeste was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. When? Friday. Are you going? Should I? That depends. Do you want to make Dominic's head explode, or do you want to survive the week? Seraphina laughed. It came out a little hysterical. What if I want both? Then you're more like me than I thought. Celeste's voice turned serious. Listen to me carefully. If you go to that dinner, there's no going back. Dominic will see it as betrayal. His people will see it as betrayal. You'll become a target for everyone who wants leverage against him. And if I don't go? Then you go back to being invisible. Back to being decorative. Back to being the wife everyone forgets exists. She paused. Is that what you want? Seraphina thought about the year she'd spent disappearing. Thought about Dominic's cold dismissal. Thought about the woman she'd seen in the mirror last night. Strong, dangerous, impossible to ignore. No. Then you know what you have to do. The week crawled by like broken glass. Dominic came home Tuesday night, late. She heard him moving through the penthouse around 3 a.m. Doors opening, water running, the heavy silence of someone trying not to make noise. She stayed in her room. Wednesday, he was gone again before she woke up. Thursday morning, she found him in the kitchen at dawn, standing at the window with coffee going cold in his hand. You're up early, she said. He didn't turn around. Couldn't sleep. Neither could I. Silence stretched between them like piano wire. I got invited to dinner, Seraphina said finally. Friday night. Where? The Morettis. Now he turned. His face was carefully blank, but something dangerous moved behind his eyes. You're not going. I haven't decided yet. I'm deciding for you. You're not going. Heat flashed through her chest. You don't get to decide that. The hell I don't. His voice was still quiet, but there was steel underneath. Salvatore Moretti is using you to get to me. You show up at his dinner, you become a weapon he can aim at my head. Maybe I want to be a weapon. Then you're stupider than I thought. The words hit like a slap. Seraphina stepped closer, close enough to see the exhaustion in his face, the tension in his jaw, the way his knuckles were white around the coffee mug. You want to know what's stupid, Dominic? Buying a wife and then ignoring her for a year, calling her decorative, treating her like furniture. That's stupid. I gave you everything you needed. Everything except a reason to stay loyal to you. His expression flickered. Something almost like pain crossed his face before hardening back to stone. You think Salvatore cares about you? You think any of them do? They want information, access, leverage. The second you're not useful, you're dead. And what am I to you? Useful? Or just an obligation you regret? You're my wife. That's not an answer. He set down the coffee mug with too much force. Ceramic cracked against marble. I don't have time for this. You never have time for anything except your empire and your violence and your paranoid control of everything around you. Her voice rose despite her best efforts. I've been here for a year, Dominic. A year. And you've barely spoken 100 words to me. So forgive me if I don't take orders from a husband who can't even look at me like I'm human. You want me to look at you. His voice dropped to something dangerous. Fine, I'm looking. I see a woman who showed up at the most dangerous party in Blackthorn and walked straight into enemy territory just to make a point. I see someone playing games she doesn't understand with people who'd kill her without thinking twice. I see my wife acting like she's bulletproof when she doesn't even know how many guns are pointed at her head. Then teach me. What? Teach me. She stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat coming off him. You want me to understand your world? Teach me. Stop treating me like I'm too stupid to learn and actually show me what I'm dealing with. No. Why not? Because the second you really understand this world, you'll run. And He stopped, jaw working. Whatever he'd been about to say got swallowed back down. You what? Nothing. Go to the damn dinner if you want. Get yourself killed. See if I care. He walked out before she could respond. Seraphina stood in the kitchen with her heart hammering and her hands shaking and the certainty that she'd just glimpsed something real underneath all of Dominic's armor. He cared. He didn't want to, but he did. That changed everything. Friday arrived like a storm on the horizon. Seraphina spent the morning with Celeste, preparing for the dinner the way generals prepare for battle. They'll test you, Celeste warned, push boundaries, ask questions designed to make you slip. Salvatore is not just interested in what you know, he wants to see how you handle pressure. What should I tell him? Nothing important, but make it sound important. That's the trick. She leaned back in her chair. These men respect intelligence and strength. Show them both. But don't give them ammunition to use against Dominic. Even though Dominic thinks I'm already betraying him, especially because of that. Celeste's expression softened slightly. You're walking a tightrope, Seraphina. One side is loyalty to a husband who's treated you like garbage. The other side is independence and power and the chance to be something more than his invisible wife. Both sides will try to kill you if you fall. Encouraging. I'm not here to encourage you. I'm here to make sure you survive. The dress for tonight was different from the gala. Not black, deep emerald green that made her eyes look dangerous. Hair pulled back severe, jewelry minimal. Everything calculated to suggest money, intelligence, control. She looked in the mirror and saw someone who belonged in rooms where power got traded like currency. Antonio drove her to the restaurant, some exclusive place in the financial district where privacy costs more than the food. He pulled up to the entrance and turned to look at her. Mrs. Valieri, don't. I wasn't going to warn you. Then what? Just, he paused. Be smart. These people aren't your friends. They're not even Dominic's enemies. Not really. They're opportunists. They'll smile at you while planning how to use you. Sounds like every conversation I've had for the past year. His mouth twitched. Might have been a smile. Fair point. She got out of the car and walked into the restaurant alone. Salvatore was waiting in a private dining room on the third floor. The space was intimate. Maybe 12 seats around a table that probably cost more than a car. Crystal and candles and the kind of quiet money that didn't need to advertise itself. 6 men stood when she entered. Salvatore at the head of the table, his lieutenants arranged like pieces on a chessboard. Mrs. Valieri. Salvatore's smile was warm and completely empty. I'm delighted you could join us. Thank you for the invitation. Please, sit. He gestured to the chair on his right. Position of honor, or position of interrogation, hard to tell which. She sat. The meal started with pleasantries and wine, and the kind of small talk that felt like everyone was circling around what they actually wanted to discuss. Business stayed carefully vague. Names got dropped but never connected to anything concrete. Seraphina played along, smiled, laughed at appropriate moments. Let them think she was just decoration at a table full of dangerous men. Then Salvatore leaned back in his chair and studied her with those predator eyes. So tell me, Mrs. Valieri, what does Dominic's wife do with her time? I read, study market trends, try not to be bored. Bored? In a marriage to one of the most powerful men in Blackthorn? Power doesn't translate to companionship. Several men chuckled. Salvatore's smile sharpened. No, I suppose it doesn't. But surely you have interests beyond reading. I'm rebuilding my finance education. I was close to finishing my degree before circumstances changed. Circumstances. He said the word like it tasted interesting. You mean before your father's gambling debts forced you into an arranged marriage? The table went quiet. Seraphina met his eyes without flinching. Yes, those circumstances. Must have been difficult, going from promising student to bought wife. It was educational. Educational how? I learned that survival requires adaptation, that power isn't given, it's taken, that the only person you can really depend on is yourself. She paused. Valuable lessons, actually. Salvatore laughed. Actually laughed. I like you, Mrs. Valieri. You're much sharper than your husband gives you credit for. Most people are. True. He sipped his wine. Tell me, these market trends you study, do they ever involve Dominic's business interests? And there it was, the real question hiding underneath all the pleasantries. I see the financial reports that come through the house, Seraphina said carefully. Hard to miss them. And what do you think of his portfolio? Aggressive, high risk, some brilliant moves mixed with some concerning vulnerabilities. Such as? She smiled. Such as questions I shouldn't answer at a dinner hosted by his rivals. The table erupted in laughter. Even Salvatore looked impressed. Smart, he said. Very smart. You know exactly what I'm fishing for, and you're not biting. I'm not stupid, Mr. Moretti, and I'm not disloyal, no matter what Dominic thinks. Then why are you here? Good question. She'd been asking herself that all week, because I'm tired of being invisible, because I spent a year being ignored and dismissed and treated like furniture, because I'm good at this, finance, strategy, understanding how money moves through the world, and I want people to know it. She met his eyes, including you. Salvatore studied her for a long moment. Then he leaned forward. What if I offered you a position? Consulting work. Legitimate. Well paid. A chance to use that brilliant mind without being tied to Dominic's reputation. I'd ask what you'd want in return. Information. Not about Dominic specifically, just about market movements, investment opportunities, the kind of intelligence that helps people like me make better decisions. Intelligence that would inevitably include Dominic's interests. Perhaps, incidentally, Seraphina let the offer hang in the air between them. Let him think she was considering it. That's a generous offer, Mr. Moretti, but I'll have to decline. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment, maybe. Or respect. May I ask why? Because I don't need your money or your position to prove I'm valuable. I can do that on my own terms. She stood. Thank you for dinner and for reminding me that everyone in this city sees me as leverage instead of a person. It's clarifying. She left before anyone could respond, made it all the way to the elevator before her hands started shaking. Antonio was waiting with the car. He took one look at her face and didn't ask questions. The drive home was silent. Dominic was in the living room when she walked in, sitting in the dark with a glass of something amber and a stillness that suggested violence barely contained. How was dinner? His voice cut through the darkness like a blade. Fine. Just fine? What do you want me to say, Dominic? That Salvatore offered me a job? That he spent an hour trying to figure out what I know about your business? That every man at that table looked at me like I was a resource to be exploited? She dropped her clutch on the console table. Because all of that happened, just like you said it would. He stood, moved toward her with that predator grace that suggested he'd hurt people with his bare hands. Did you take the job? No. Why not? Because I'm not interested in being Salvatore Moretti's spy, or anyone else's. She met his eyes. But I'm also not interested in being your decorative wife anymore. Then what do you want? I want to matter. I want to be seen. I want my husband to look at me like I'm more than an obligation he regrets. Her voice cracked slightly. I want to stop feeling like a ghost in my own life. Dominic stared at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in their entire marriage, she saw something real in his expression. You think I don't see you? I know you don't. You're wrong. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell whiskey and violence on his breath. I see you every damn day. I see you in the library reading books that should bore you but don't. I see you building something in the shadows while pretending to be nothing. I see you getting stronger and smarter and more dangerous every week. His jaw worked. And it terrifies me. Why? Because the stronger you get, the more you become a target. Because men like Salvatore will try to use you. Because this world destroys everything good that enters it. And you... He stopped, swallowed hard. You're too good for this world, Seraphina. Too smart, too valuable. And the second everyone else figures that out, you're dead. The words hung between them like exposed wire. So what? Seraphina's voice shook. I'm supposed to stay invisible forever? Stay decorative? Stay safe and useless and forgotten? Yes, That's not living. That's hiding. Hiding keeps you alive. I don't want to just be alive. The words came out louder than intended. I want to exist. I want to matter. I want... Her voice broke. I want you to care about me like I'm your wife instead of your burden. Something cracked in Dominic's expression, all that stone armor splintering around the edges. I do care. His voice was rough. That's the problem. I care too damn much, and it's making me weak, making me sloppy, making me question things I've never questioned before. Like what? Like whether any of this is worth it if you're not safe. Whether this empire matters if keeping it means losing you. He turned away, ran a hand through his hair. You want to know why I ignored you for a year? Because I was trying to protect you, trying to keep you separate from all of this, trying to convince myself that you were just a debt I'd settled, nothing more. And now I can't pretend anymore. He looked back at her. Now you're all I think about, and it's going to get us both killed. Seraphina's breath caught. This was the truth she'd been clawing toward for months. The real Dominic underneath all the ice and distance and carefully controlled violence. He loved her, or something close enough to love that it scared him. She crossed the distance between them, put her hand against his chest and felt his heart hammering underneath expensive fabric. Then teach me, she said quietly. Stop protecting me by pushing me away and actually teach me how to survive in your world. Let me be your partner instead of your burden. You don't know what you're asking for. I know exactly what I'm asking for. They stood there in the darkness of their broken marriage, close enough to touch, close enough to break. Then Dominic's phone rang. He pulled back like she'd burned him, answered with the clipped efficiency of someone who'd spent a lifetime compartmentalizing. What? She watched his expression change, watched the brief vulnerability disappear behind walls of steel. When? A pause. Where? Another pause. I'm on my way. He ended the call and looked at her with eyes that had gone cold again. I have to go. What happened? Someone hit one of our warehouses in the port district. 3 men dead, shipment gone. Who? Don't know yet, but someone's making a move. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the couch. Stay here. Lock the doors. Don't leave the penthouse. Dominic, please, Seraphina. Just this once. Please don't fight me on this. The desperation in his voice stopped her protest. Okay. He nodded once. Then he was gone, disappearing into whatever violence waited in the darkness. Seraphina stood alone in the living room with her heart still racing and the ghost of his words echoing in her head. You're all I think about. Everything was changing, and she had no idea if change meant salvation or destruction. The next 2 weeks felt like standing on the edge of a cliff waiting to fall. Violence rippled through Blackthorn's criminal underworld like waves from a stone thrown into still water. Warehouses burned, shipments vanished, men disappeared. The careful equilibrium Dominic had maintained for years started cracking, and everyone blamed everyone else. Dominic was gone more than he was home. When he did show up, he looked exhausted, sharp edges worn down by too much coffee and not enough sleep, and the weight of an empire under siege. Seraphina tried to help, offered to look at financial reports, track money movements, find patterns in the chaos. He shut her down every time. This isn't your problem. It became my problem the second you married me. No, it became my problem the second I was stupid enough to let you matter. The words should have hurt. Instead, they felt like progress. Week 3 after the warehouse attack, Seraphina woke to her phone buzzing at 2 a.m. Unknown number. She answered anyway, sleep still thick in her voice. Mrs. Valieri? A woman's voice, professional, unfamiliar. I'm calling from Blackthorn General Hospital. Your husband was brought in about an hour ago. Ice flooded her veins. What happened? He's stable, but he's asking for you. She was dressed and in the car within 5 minutes. Antonio drove like the city was ending, which maybe it was. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and bad decisions. A nurse led her to a private room where Dominic sat on an examination table with blood on his shirt and fury in his eyes. What the hell happened? Seraphina demanded. Ambush, 3 cars, professional. His voice was flat, empty of everything except rage barely contained. They knew where I'd be, knew my route, knew exactly how many men I'd have with me. Someone leaked your location. Obviously. Who? If I knew that, they'd already be dead. A doctor appeared with stitches and antiseptic and professional detachment. Seraphina watched him clean the wound on Dominic's shoulder, bullet graze, not deep, and felt something cold settle in her chest. This was her life now. Hospitals and blood and the constant possibility of violence. The doctor left with instructions about antibiotics and rest that Dominic would definitely ignore. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Dominic spoke. They weren't trying to kill me. What? The ambush. They could have killed me easily, but they were aiming for wounds, not fatalities. His jaw worked. They were sending a message. What kind of message? The kind that says someone wants me scared, wants me reactive, wants me making mistakes. He looked at her. You need to leave Blackthorn. What? No. Seraphina. No. She stood. You don't get to almost die and then send me away. That's not how this works. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need you to stop treating me like I'm fragile. You're not fragile, but you're also not bulletproof, and the people coming after me won't hesitate to use you as leverage. Then let them try. Dominic stared at her like she'd lost her mind. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of being the invisible wife everyone underestimates. She moved closer. You said I'm all you think about. You said keeping this empire means losing me. Well, guess what, Dominic? You don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to care about me and then push me away when things get dangerous. This isn't about having it both ways. This is about keeping you alive. I don't want to just be alive. I want to fight. With you. Beside you. She grabbed his hand, felt the calluses and scars and strength underneath. Let me be dangerous instead of decorative. If I do that, if I bring you into this world completely, there's no going back. Good. I don't want to go back. They looked at each other across the space between protection and partnership. Then Dominic pulled her close, kissed her hard enough to bruise, kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. When they broke apart, he pressed his forehead against hers. This is a mistake, he whispered. Probably. You're going to get hurt. Definitely. And you still want this? More than anything. He pulled back, studied her face with those steel eyes that finally saw everything she was instead of everything he'd wanted her to be. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, but we do this my way. You learn the rules. You learn who to trust and who wants you dead. You learn how to spot danger before it kills you. Deal. And Seraphina? His expression was deadly serious. From this moment on, you're not just my wife. You're my partner, which means their bullets are aimed at you too. I know. Do you? Because once you step into this world completely, everyone becomes your enemy. Everyone wants leverage. Everyone's looking for weakness. And you... He touched her face. You're my biggest weakness now. Then we'll be each other's strength instead. He smiled, sad and dangerous and real. When did you get so brave? The night you called me decorative and I decided to become something else. Dominic laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was rough and unexpected and beautiful. Then his phone rang again. He answered it with that same clipped efficiency. Seraphina watched his expression change. Watched whatever was left of their brief moment together disappear behind walls of strategic calculation. Say that again. A pause. All of it? Another pause. His knuckles went white around the phone. Where? He ended the call and stood, moved with purpose that suggested violence was imminent. What happened? The FBI just raided 6 of our legitimate businesses, froze assets across 4 different accounts, seized records going back 5 years. He grabbed his jacket. Someone didn't just leak my location tonight. They leaked everything. Who has that kind of access? That's what I'm about to find out. He headed for the door. Dominic. He looked back. Be careful. Something flickered in his eyes. Always am. Then he was gone, leaving her alone in a hospital room that smelled like blood and antiseptic and the end of something that had barely begun. Seraphina's phone buzzed, text from an unknown number.
Your husband is bleeding from 1,000 cuts. How long before he bleeds out completely? SS. Salvatore. Her hands shook as she typed a response. Stay out of this. The reply came instantly. I'm trying to help you, Mrs. Valieri. When Dominic's empire collapses, and it will, you'll need somewhere to land. My offer still stands. She stared at the message. Then she called Celeste. They're destroying him, Seraphina said when Celeste answered. FBI raids, frozen assets, someone on the inside feeding information to everyone who wants him dead. And I need to figure out who before Dominic does something that gets him killed. Why? Because he's my husband. Because She stopped. The words stuck in her throat. Because you love him, Celeste finished quietly. Yes. Then you need to decide something right now, Seraphina. Are you his wife trying to save him, or are you your own woman trying to save yourself? Can't I be both? No, not in this world. Not when everything's burning down. Celeste's voice was hard. You have to choose, him or you. There's no middle ground anymore.
Seraphina looked at the blood on the hospital sheets, thought about Dominic kissing her like she was the only real thing in his violent world, thought about the empire collapsing and the enemies circling and the impossible choice sitting in front of her like a loaded gun. I choose. Her phone died. Battery drained to nothing in the middle of the most important decision of her life. She sat there in the darkness with dead phone and no answers, and the certainty that whatever she decided next would change everything forever. Outside, sirens wailed through Blackthorn's streets like the city itself was screaming, and Seraphina finally understood what Antonio had meant weeks ago. Be careful of winning, because winning meant becoming exactly as dangerous as the world that was trying to destroy her, and there was no going back from that. Seraphina sat in the hospital room staring at her dead phone and felt the world tilt sideways. I choose. The words had died on her lips, unfinished, hanging in the void between who she'd been and who she was becoming. Him or you. Celeste's voice echoed in her head like a verdict she couldn't appeal. She found a charger at the nurse's station, plugged in her phone with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, watched the screen flicker to life and immediately light up with messages. 3 from Antonio. Where are you? Mr. Valieri is looking for you. Call me immediately. 2 from Celeste. Have you decided? Time is running out. And 1 more from the unknown number. From Salvatore. Tick-tock, Mrs. Valieri. She called Antonio first. Where the hell are you? His voice was sharp, stressed. Antonio never sounded stressed. Still at the hospital. My phone died. What's happening? Everything. Get back to the penthouse. Now. Mr. Valieri's orders. Is he okay? He's alive. That's all I can say on an open line. The call ended. Seraphina grabbed her things and ran. The drive back felt like moving through a nightmare. Blackthorn's streets were quieter than they should have been at 3 a.m. Not peaceful quiet. Predator quiet. The kind of silence that meant everyone was waiting for violence to break. Antonio met her in the lobby. His face was granite. Upstairs, fast. The elevator ride lasted forever and no time at all. When the doors opened onto the penthouse, she found chaos. Men everywhere. Dominic's people. Hard faces and harder eyes and weapons barely concealed under expensive suits. They parted when she entered, tracking her movement with the kind of attention that suggested she was either an asset or a liability, and nobody knew which yet. Dominic was in his office, standing at the window overlooking Blackthorn with his back to the door. His shirt was still bloody. His posture suggested someone barely holding violence in check. Close the door, he said, without turning around. Seraphina closed it. The sound felt final. Tell me about Celeste Arden. Ice flooded her veins. What? Celeste Arden, political strategist, the woman you've been meeting with for months. Now he turned. His face was carved from stone. Tell me about her. How did you... I've known since the second meeting. I have people who watch you, for your protection. His jaw worked. Now tell me why you're working with her. The air between them felt explosive. Because you ignored me. Because I needed someone to teach me how to exist in your world. Because... Her voice cracked. Because I was drowning and she threw me a rope. She threw you a noose? Dominic moved around his desk, each step deliberate. Celeste Arden isn't a strategist, she's a fixer. She specializes in destroying powerful men by turning their weaknesses against them. And you, Seraphina, you're my weakness. The words landed like bullets. No, she was helping me, teaching me how to be strong, how to get close to me. Dominic pulled out his phone, scrolled to something, turned the screen toward her. This is a recording from Celeste's office from 2 weeks ago. Listen. He pressed play. Celeste's voice filled the room, clear, cold. Nothing like the mentor who'd spent months building Seraphina's confidence. Phase 2 is almost complete. The wife trusts me completely. She's becoming exactly what we need. Visible, valuable, connected to Valieri's operations without understanding she's the weapon we're using to destroy him. Another voice. Male. Unfamiliar. And when Valieri's empire collapses? Then Mrs. Valieri becomes our asset entirely. She'll have nowhere else to go, no one else to turn to. We'll own her the way Valieri thought he did. Laughter. Cruel and calculating. Brilliant, using his own wife to burn him down. It's almost poetic. The recording ended. Seraphina stood there with her world disintegrating around her like ash. No, her voice came out broken. No, that's not... She was helping me. She believed in me. She was using you. Dominic's voice was flat, empty of everything except exhausted fury. Every conversation, every lesson, every moment she spent building your confidence, it was all designed to turn you into the perfect weapon against me. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know. It doesn't matter if you knew. He moved closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion bleeding through his rage. What matters is that you gave her access. You met with her in secret. You learned from her. You became exactly what she wanted you to become, valuable enough to my enemies that they'd pay anything to have you. I never told her anything about your business. You didn't have to tell her anything. Your existence was enough. Your transformation was enough. The second you walked into that gala and proved you were more than decorative, you became leverage, and Celeste made sure everyone knew it. Seraphina felt like she was falling through space with nothing to grab onto. The FBI raids, the frozen assets, the attacks. Her mind raced through months of carefully constructed trust. She fed them information? Worse, she created a network of people all working toward the same goal, destroying me by isolating me. Every ally she convinced to turn, every business contact she poisoned against me, every move designed to make me desperate and reactive. He laughed, bitter and broken. And it's working, because the one thing holding me back from total war is you. Because I can't burn this city down while you're still in it. Then let me fix this. There's nothing to fix. Dominic turned away. You're the problem, Seraphina. You're the weakness they're exploiting, the vulnerability they're using to tear me apart. The words hit like physical blows. So what are you saying? I'm saying you need to leave, tonight. Antonio will take you somewhere safe. Somewhere away from Blackthorn. Away from this war. No. This isn't a discussion. You're right. It's not. She moved around the desk, forced him to look at her. Because I'm not leaving. I'm not running from a mess I helped create. You didn't create this. Celeste did. But I gave her the tools. I gave her access. I became the weapon she used against you. Her voice was steady now, cold. So I'm going to fix it. How? By getting yourself killed. If that's what it takes. Dominic grabbed her shoulders. His grip was too tight, but she didn't pull away. You don't understand what you're saying. These people, Celeste, Salvatore, whoever else is behind this, they're not playing games. They will kill you without hesitation. Then teach me how to kill them first. Seraphina, you said I was your partner. You said we were in this together. She met his eyes. So stop trying to protect me and start trusting me. They stood there locked in mutual desperation. Then Antonio knocked, entered without waiting for permission. We have a problem. Another one? Dominic's voice was acid. Marco's dead, found in his apartment an hour ago. Single shot to the head. Professional. Marco. One of Dominic's most trusted lieutenants. One of the few people who knew everything about the organization's financial structures. Who knew his location? Dominic asked. Only inner circle. Antonio's expression was grim. Which means We have a mole. Dominic's hands dropped from Seraphina's shoulders. Someone on the inside feeding information.
Or multiple someones, Antonio added. Marco's death makes 3 key people dead in 2 weeks, all killed the same way, all with access to sensitive information. Seraphina's mind worked through the implications. They're eliminating your infrastructure, taking out the people who hold your operation together.
While making it look like random violence, Dominic finished, making me paranoid, making me distrust my own people. It's working, Antonio said quietly. The 3 of them stood in that office while the weight of betrayal pressed down like gravity had doubled.
I need names, Dominic said finally. Everyone who had access to Marco. Everyone who knew where he was staying. Everyone who's been acting strange or asking too many questions. That's half your organization. Then we check half my organization. Antonio left to start making calls.
Seraphina moved to the window, looked out at Blackthorn's glittering skyline and saw a city that had never been hers, a city that ate everything soft and spit out bones. There's something else, she said. What? Salvatore texted me. Tonight, while you were dealing with the FBI raids. She pulled out her phone, showed him the messages. He knew about the attacks before they were public. He knew about the frozen assets. He's been watching this whole time. Dominic read the messages with a face that suggested murder was imminent. He's enjoying this, watching me bleed. Or he's involved. Maybe Celeste and Salvatore are working together. They are. Dominic handed back her phone. I've suspected for weeks but couldn't prove it. Celeste handles the strategic destruction. Salvatore provides the muscle and the political connections. Together they're dismantling everything I've built. Then we dismantle them first. We?
Yes. We. She turned to face him. I know you want to send me away, lock me somewhere safe where I can't be used against you, but that's exactly what they're expecting. They're expecting you to be predictable, protective, weak. Protecting you isn't weakness. It is when it paralyzes you, when it stops you from doing what needs to be done. She stepped closer. Let me help you. I know Celeste. I know how she thinks. I know her methods. And what would you do with that knowledge? Feed her exactly what she's looking for. Make her think her plan is working. Make her confident.
Seraphina's voice was cold now, strategic. And then we pull the floor out from under her. Dominic studied her face, looking for cracks in her resolve. You understand what that means? If you go back to Celeste, she'll try to use you again. She'll push harder, test you, try to turn you against me for real. Let her try. And if you can't maintain the deception, if she figures out you're playing her, then I'll be the one who ends up dead instead of you. The words hung between them like a promise written in blood. I can't lose you, Dominic said quietly. You already lost me the second you bought me to settle a debt. Everything since then has been us finding each other again. She touched his face. Don't send me away now. Not when I'm finally exactly where I'm supposed to be. His phone rang. He answered it, still looking at her. What? A pause. When? His expression went dark. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He ended the call. Another warehouse, 4th one this month. They're not even pretending anymore. Let me come with you. No. Dominic, no. His voice left no room for argument. You want to help? Fine. But not by walking into a war zone. You work the Celeste angle. Figure out exactly who she's working with and how deep this goes. I'll handle the violence. He grabbed his jacket, checked the gun at his hip with practiced efficiency. At the door, he paused. Seraphina. Yeah? If anything happens to me, if this goes sideways, Antonio has instructions, money, documents, everything you need to disappear. Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me you'll run if it does. She wanted to promise, wanted to give him that comfort, but she'd spent too many months learning how to stop lying. I promise I'll survive, she said instead. He nodded, understanding exactly what she wasn't saying. Then he was gone, disappearing into whatever violence waited in the darkness. Seraphina stood alone in the office and made a decision that would either save them both or destroy everything. She called Celeste. It rang 4 times before connecting. Seraphina. Celeste's voice was warm, concerned, the perfect mask. I've been worried. Are you all right? I need to see you tomorrow, early. Of course. What's wrong? Everything. The FBI raids, the attacks, Dominic's losing control, and I... She let her voice crack. Let fear bleed through. I don't know what to do. Silence. Then, come to my office at 8. We'll figure this out together. Thank you. That's what I'm here for. The call ended. Seraphina set down her phone and felt something cold settle in her chest. She'd just declared war on the woman who'd taught her how to fight, and she had no idea if she was strong enough to win. The next morning arrived too fast. Seraphina dressed carefully. Not the armor she'd worn to the gala. Something softer, more vulnerable, hair down, minimal makeup. The costume of a woman on the edge of breaking. She needed Celeste to see prey, not the predator she was becoming. Antonio drove her to Celeste's office building in the financial district. The morning was gray, cold, the kind of weather that suggested the world was tired of pretending to be beautiful. You sure about this? Antonio asked when they pulled up to the entrance. No. Good. Uncertainty keeps you careful. He handed her a phone. Small, nondescript. Panic button. One press and I'm through the door in 90 seconds. And if 90 seconds is too long, then I'll make sure whoever hurt you doesn't live to enjoy it. She took the phone, slipped it into her pocket next to her regular one. If I don't come out, you will. But if I don't, tell Dominic. She stopped. What was there to say? Tell him I chose him. At the end, I chose him. Antonio's expression softened slightly. He already knows. She got out of the car before she could lose her nerve. Celeste's office was on the 18th floor, all glass and steel and expensive minimalism. The receptionist waved her through without questions. Celeste was waiting in her office, standing at the window with coffee steaming in her hand and the city spread out behind her like a kingdom. Seraphina. She turned, smiled. The same warm mentor smile that had fooled her for months. You look exhausted. I haven't slept in 2 days. Come, sit. Celeste gestured to the leather chairs. Tell me everything. Seraphina sat. Let exhaustion show in her posture. Let fear bleed through the cracks. Everything's falling apart. The FBI froze half of Dominic's assets. His people are getting killed. Someone on the inside is feeding information to his enemies. She rubbed her face. He thinks I'm the weakness they're exploiting. Are you? I don't know. Maybe. She looked up, met Celeste's eyes. He wants to send me away, hide me somewhere safe while he fights this war, but I can't just run. I can't. Her voice cracked perfectly. I don't know what to do. Celeste sat across from her, leaned forward with practiced concern. What do you want to do? I want to help him, but I don't know how. I don't know who to trust. I don't know. She stopped, let silence hang heavy. You can trust me, Celeste said softly. You've always been able to trust me. The lie was so smooth it almost sounded true. Have I? Seraphina looked at her. Because sometimes I wonder if you're helping me or using me. Celeste's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Why would you think that? Because everyone in Blackthorn uses everyone else. Because nothing is free. Because you spent months teaching me how to be dangerous without ever asking what you'd get in return. What I get, Celeste said carefully, is the satisfaction of watching a brilliant woman become what she was always meant to be. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. The mask slipped, just for a second, just enough to reveal the cold calculation underneath. Seraphina filed it away. I need to know something, she said. If Dominic's empire collapses, if everything falls apart, what happens to me? You survive. You rebuild. You become your own power instead of an extension of his. Celeste paused. Unless you choose to go down with him, would that be stupid? It would be loyalty, which is the same thing in this world. And what would you do if you were me? Celeste smiled, sharp and knowing. I'd save myself. Always. Because no man is worth dying for, not even one you love. There it was. The philosophy that had guided every lesson, every conversation, Every moment of their twisted mentorship. Save yourself, always. What if I can't? Seraphina's voice was small, broken. What if I'm in too deep? Then you make a choice. Him or you. There's no middle ground. The same words she'd said on the phone 2 nights ago. Him or you. Seraphina stood, moved to the window, looked out at Blackthorn spreading below them like a diseased organism. Salvatore Moretti offered me a job. Did I tell you that? Behind her, Celeste went very still. No, you didn't. At the dinner, he wants me to consult, provide financial intelligence, help him make better investments. She turned. Should I take it? Do you want to? I want to survive. You taught me that. Survival is everything. Celeste studied her, really studied her, looking for cracks in the performance. If you take Salvatore's offer, Dominic will see it as betrayal. And if I don't take it, I might end up dead when his empire collapses. True. So what should I do, Celeste? You're the expert. You're the one who's been guiding me this whole time. Seraphina stepped closer. Tell me what I should do. The silence stretched like a blade between them. Then Celeste smiled. I think you already know what you should do. You're just afraid to admit it. Which is? Save yourself. Take Salvatore's offer. Distance yourself from Dominic before the whole thing burns down. Build your own power base. Become the woman I've been teaching you to be. And Dominic? He made his choices. Let him live with the consequences. There it was. The truth underneath all the mentorship and support and carefully constructed trust. Celeste wanted her to abandon Dominic, wanted her isolated and vulnerable and completely dependent on the network Celeste controlled. Seraphina felt rage burn through her chest like acid, but she kept her face carefully neutral, kept the mask perfect. You're right, she said quietly. You're absolutely right. I need to save myself. Celeste's smile widened. I'm glad you're finally seeing clearly. There's just one problem. What's that? I already made my choice. Seraphina pulled out her regular phone, held it up so Celeste could see the screen. And it was him. The recording app was running, had been running since she walked through the door. Every word, every admission, every piece of damning evidence right there in digital clarity. Celeste's expression went cold. You're recording this. I've been recording everything since I figured out what you were doing. Every phone call, every meeting, every lesson where you taught me how to be dangerous while turning me into your weapon. Seraphina's voice was ice. You wanted to destroy Dominic by using me? Congratulations. You taught me so well that I'm going to destroy you instead. You stupid girl. Celeste stood. You have no idea what you've just done. I know exactly what I've done. I've declared war on a woman who underestimated me. She moved toward the door. You thought I was weak, thought I was malleable, thought you could shape me into whatever weapon you needed. But you forgot something important. What's that? I'm Dominic Valieri's wife, and he taught me that the most dangerous weapons are the ones people never see coming. She reached for the door handle. Celeste's voice stopped her. If you walk out of here with that recording, you're dead. You understand that? Salvatore, everyone I work with, they'll come for you. They'll tear you apart to get that evidence. Let them try. Seraphina. Celeste's voice was different now, desperate. Don't do this. We can work together. We can... No, we can't. Because you were never working with me. You were using me. And I'm done being used by anyone. She walked out before Celeste could respond. Made it to the elevator with her heart trying to punch through her ribs. Made it to the lobby with her hands shaking so hard she could barely hold her phone. Made it to the car where Antonio was waiting with the engine running. Drive, she said. He drove. 3 blocks away, Seraphina's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered anyway. That was impressively stupid. Salvatore Moretti's voice was smooth as poison. Did you really think Celeste wouldn't tell me immediately? I think you were listening the whole time. Smart girl. You're learning. He paused. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to delete that recording. You're going to disappear from Blackthorn, and you're going to leave Dominic to die alone. Or what? Or I'll kill everyone you've ever cared about, starting with that loyal driver sitting next to you. Ice flooded her veins. You're bluffing. Am I? Look behind you. Seraphina turned. 3 black cars were following them. Close. Professional. Shit, Antonio muttered. Pull over, Salvatore said in her ear. Get out of the car, walk away, or this ends with your driver's blood on the pavement and you watching it happen. Seraphina, Antonio started. She made a decision. Turn left, next street, fast. What? Do it. Antonio jerked the wheel. The car screamed around the corner. Behind them, the black cars followed. You're making this worse, Salvatore said. Still calm, still certain. Good. I want it worse. She ended the call. Where are we going? Antonio demanded. The warehouse district, Dominic's territory. We need backup. We need an army. Then call one. Antonio got on the phone, started barking orders in rapid Italian while taking corners too fast and running lights like the city was ending. Maybe it was. Seraphina's phone rang again, Dominic's name on the screen. She answered. Where are you? His voice was sharp, controlled violence. Being chased by 3 cars full of Salvatore's people. Antonio's driving. We're heading toward your warehouse on 5th. How far out? 5 minutes. Make it 3. I'm sending people to intercept. Dominic, I know about the recording. Celeste called me 30 seconds after you left. Told me if I didn't hand you over, she'd burn my entire operation to the ground. What did you tell her? I told her she could try. Despite everything, the fear, the adrenaline, the cars full of armed men hunting her through Blackthorn streets, Seraphina smiled. I love you, she said. Silence. Then, don't die before I can tell you the same thing. The call ended. Behind them, one of the black cars pulled alongside. Windows rolled down. Gun! Antonio shouted. He swerved hard. Seraphina slammed against the door. Gunfire erupted like the world was tearing apart. Glass exploded. Metal screamed. Antonio took another corner on 2 wheels. You hit? No. You? No. More gunfire. The rear window disintegrated into diamonds. Seraphina ducked low, felt adrenaline turn her blood into electricity. 2 minutes, Antonio said through gritted teeth. The warehouse district materialized around them like salvation made of concrete and rust. Antonio didn't slow down, just aimed the car toward a building with a garage door that was already opening. They screamed through it, doing 60. The door slammed shut behind them. Silence. Sudden and absolute. They sat in the car with ears ringing and hearts hammering and the knowledge that they'd just crossed a line there was no coming back from. The warehouse door opened. Dominic stepped through with a small army behind him, all armed, all dangerous, all his. Seraphina got out of the car on legs that barely worked. Dominic crossed to her in 3 strides, grabbed her face, checked her for injuries with hands that shook slightly. You're okay? Yeah. The recording? She held up her phone. Still have it. Good. He pulled her close, pressed his forehead against hers. Don't ever do something that stupid again. Can't promise that. He laughed, rough and broken and real. Then his phone rang. He answered it, still holding her. What? Whatever he heard made his expression go dark. When? A pause. All of them? Another pause. I'm on my way. He ended the call and looked at Seraphina with eyes that had gone empty. What happened? She asked. They hit 6 locations simultaneously, killed 12 of my people, burned 4 buildings, stole 3 shipments. His voice was flat, dead. This is the endgame. Celeste and Salvatore aren't trying to pressure me anymore. They're trying to erase me. Then we erase them first. With what? They have the FBI in their pocket. They have half my organization compromised. They have resources I can't match and political protection I can't break through. But they don't have this. She held up her phone again. They don't have evidence of Celeste admitting to conspiracy. They don't have her on recording explaining how she's been orchestrating your destruction. That recording won't hold up in court. It's not properly documented. No chain of custody. Any decent lawyer would shred it. Who said anything about court? Seraphina's voice was cold. We're not fighting a legal battle. We're fighting a war. And in war, you use every weapon you have. Dominic studied her face, seeing something shift, seeing the final transformation complete. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we stop playing defense. Stop reacting. Stop letting them dictate the terms. She stepped back, looked at the men surrounding them, all waiting for orders, all ready for violence. You have an army, you have territory, you have resources they think you've already lost. We use that. We hit them where they're not expecting it. We make them bleed until they have no choice but to negotiate. And the recording? Insurance, leverage, the thing we threaten to release if they don't back down. Release to who? The FBI already knows about me. The media won't touch it without more proof. Our enemies will just claim it's fabricated. Seraphina smiled, cold and dangerous and exactly like her husband. Then we give them more proof. We make Celeste so desperate to get this recording back that she does something stupid, something public, something that can't be denied or explained away. You want to bait her? I want to destroy her, but I'll settle for baiting her first. The warehouse was silent except for the sound of men checking weapons and preparing for war. Dominic looked at his wife, this woman he'd bought like furniture and who'd become the most dangerous thing in his world, and made a decision. Okay, he said quietly. We do it your way. But if this goes wrong, it won't. If it does, you run. You take the money Antonio has set aside and you disappear and you never look back. Dominic, promise me. She wanted to promise, wanted to give him that comfort, but she'd already made her choice. I promise I'll survive, she said again. It was the only truth she had left. Outside, Blackthorn burned. And inside the warehouse, Seraphina Vale began planning how to burn it even more. She'd spent a year being invisible, 3 months becoming dangerous. Now she was going to become unstoppable, or die trying. And honestly, she wasn't sure which option terrified her more. The war room smelled like gun oil and bad coffee, and the particular tension that comes from men preparing to kill or be killed. Seraphina stood at the center of it, watching Dominic's people transform the warehouse into a command center. Maps spread across tables, weapons laid out like surgical instruments, communications equipment humming with encrypted chatter. She'd crossed a line 3 hours ago. Now there was only forward. Dominic was on his phone coordinating movements across the city. His voice clipped and precise despite the exhaustion bleeding through every word. He'd been awake for 48 hours, running on adrenaline and rage and the desperate mathematics of survival. When he finally hung up, he looked at her. They hit another location, the restaurant on 7th, burned it to the ground. Casualties? 3 dead, 6 injured. His jaw worked. They're not even hiding it anymore. They want everyone to know they're coming for me. Good. Let them be confident. Seraphina moved to the table covered in maps. Confidence makes people sloppy, or it means they actually have the upper hand. They don't, they just think they do. She traced a finger across the map. Celeste operates from her office building. Salvatore has his club in the Diamond District. Those are their command centers. Their vulnerabilities. Both heavily protected, armed guards, security systems, multiple exits. Hitting either location would be suicide. Then we don't hit them. We make them come to us. Antonio entered carrying a laptop, set it down on the table and pulled up surveillance footage. This is from outside Celeste's building, 20 minutes ago. The screen showed Celeste leaving through the front entrance surrounded by security. 4 men, professional, alert. She climbed into a black SUV and disappeared into traffic. Where's she going? Seraphina asked. Unknown, but she's moving. That means she's nervous. Good. She should be. Seraphina pulled out her phone. The recording from this morning sat there like a loaded gun. We need to push harder. Make her so desperate she makes a mistake. How? By threatening to release this to everyone she's ever worked with. Every client, every political connection, every person whose career depends on her reputation staying clean. She looked at Dominic. How many people are in her network? Hundreds, maybe thousands. She's been building it for 20 years. Then we threatened to burn 20 years of work in one night. Dominic studied her face. You understand what that means? If we do this, there's no negotiating afterward, no backing down. It's total war. We're already in total war. This just makes it official. He nodded slowly. Okay, how do we do this? Seraphina's mind raced through possibilities, through strategies Celeste herself had taught her. Control the narrative. Own the moment. Make your enemy react instead of act. We send the recording to 3 people, she said. Not everyone, just 3 carefully chosen targets. People whose opinion matters. People Celeste needs. Who? Senator Morrison. He's running for governor next year. Celeste is managing his campaign. If he thinks she's compromised, he'll drop her immediately. Second, Judge Reeves. She's been taking bribes from Salvatore for years, but nobody can prove it. We send her the recording and tell her we have evidence of her involvement too. Make her panic. Make her turn on Celeste to save herself. Third? Seraphina smiled, cold and dangerous. Marcus Webb, the FBI agent leading the investigation against you. We send it to him and suggest that maybe he's been getting intelligence from someone who's been manipulating the entire case. Dominic's eyebrows rose. That's risky. If Webb decides the recording is fabricated, he won't, because we're not sending it alone. We're sending it with financial records showing payments from Celeste to anonymous accounts. Payments that coincidentally match the timing of every major FBI action against you. You have those records? I've been building them for 2 months. Ever since I figured out what Celeste was doing. She pulled up files on her phone. I tracked every suspicious payment, every shell company, every transaction that didn't make sense. It's all circumstantial, nothing that would hold up in court, but enough to make Webb question everything he thinks he knows. The room was silent. Then Dominic laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was rough and exhausted and filled with something close to pride. When did you become this? The night you called me decorative and I decided to become something else. You're terrifying. Good. So is everyone trying to kill us? Antonio cleared his throat. If we send this to those 3 people, Celeste will know immediately. She'll retaliate. That's what we're counting on, Seraphina said. We want her to retaliate. We want her desperate and angry and making decisions based on panic instead of strategy. And when she comes for you, then I'll be ready. Dominic grabbed her arm. Not rough, but firm enough to make her look at him. You're not using yourself as bait. I'm the only bait she wants. She spent months grooming me to be her weapon. Now I'm turning that around, using her investment against her. No. Yes. She pulled her arm free. This is my plan. My choice. You don't get to veto it because you're scared of losing me. I'm not scared. I'm practical. If Celeste gets her hands on you, she won't. You can't know that. I know that I'm tired of hiding, tired of being protected, tired of being the weakness everyone exploits. Her voice was steel. I want to be the weapon that destroys them, and that means taking risks. They stared at each other across the space between protection and partnership. Antonio broke the silence. What if we compromise? Send the recordings, set the trap, but keep Mrs. Valieri somewhere secure until Celeste makes her move. She won't move if I'm hiding, Seraphina said. She'll know it's a trap. Then we make it look like you're not hiding. Make it look like you're vulnerable. How? Antonio pulled up another file on his laptop. There's a charity event tomorrow night, the Winter Gala, high profile, public, lots of witnesses. Celeste will be there. So will Salvatore. So will half the people who want Dominic dead. And you want me to attend? Seraphina asked. I want us to make it look like you're attending, like you're desperate enough to seek public protection, like you think being surrounded by cameras and important people will keep you safe. But actually, you'll be bait drawing them into a controlled environment where we have the advantage. Dominic shook his head. Too many variables. Too many ways it goes wrong. All plans have variables, Seraphina said, but this one has something the others don't. What? Me. Walking into that gala like I own it, making Celeste so angry she can't think straight, making Salvatore confident enough to make a move. She looked at both men. We send the recordings tonight, let them panic for 24 hours. Then tomorrow night, I show up at the gala and we end this. Or you end up dead, Dominic said flatly. Then you'll have to kill them for me. The silence stretched like broken glass. Finally, Dominic nodded. Okay, we do it your way. But I'm sending 20 people with you, armed, positioned throughout the venue. The second anything feels wrong, you abort. Deal. And Seraphina? His voice was different now, quiet, raw. If this goes sideways, if you get hurt, if I lose you, you won't. But if I do, I need you to know something. What? You're the best thing that ever happened to me, and the most terrifying. And He stopped, swallowed hard. I should have seen you from the beginning, should have known you were going to turn my entire world inside out. Is that a complaint? It's an apology for the year I wasted, for treating you like you were nothing. He pulled her close. You're everything, and I'm sorry it took me so long to figure that out. Seraphina felt something crack in her chest, the last piece of armor she'd been holding on to. Tell me again when this is over, she whispered. I will. As many times as you want to hear it. They stood there in a warehouse full of weapons and violence and men preparing for war, holding on to each other like the world was ending. Because maybe it was. The recordings went out at midnight. 3 carefully crafted messages. 3 devastating attachments. 3 targeted strikes designed to make Celeste's world collapse. Seraphina sent them herself, watched the confirmation receipts light up her screen, felt something cold and final settle in her chest. No going back now. They waited. 20 minutes later, Dominic's phone rang. Senator Morrison. Dominic put it on speaker. What the hell is this? Morrison's voice was shrill, panicked. Who sent me this recording? I did, Dominic said calmly. Just thought you should know your campaign manager has been manipulating federal investigations and conspiring to destroy legitimate businesses. This is fabricated. Celeste would never listen to it again. That's her voice, her office, her admission. Dominic paused. And if it goes public, your campaign is finished. You're already polling weak on corruption issues. This kills you. What do you want? Distance yourself from Celeste Arden, publicly, tomorrow. Or that recording goes to every news outlet in the state. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you a chance to save your career. What you do with it is up to you. Dominic ended the call. 5 minutes later, another call. Judge Reeves. Mr. Valieri? Her voice was ice. I received some very disturbing information tonight. I imagine you did. If you think you can threaten me, I'm not threatening you, Your Honor. I'm offering you a deal. Stop taking orders from Salvatore Moretti. Stop signing warrants based on fabricated evidence. Stop being part of the machinery trying to destroy me. Do that, and the evidence of your involvement never sees daylight. I could have you arrested for this. You could try, but then I'd have to release everything, including the financial records showing payments from Moretti to your offshore accounts, including the wiretaps proving you've been coordinating with known criminals, including enough evidence to send you to prison for the rest of your life. Silence, long and thick. What exactly do you want from me? Nothing. Just stop helping them, that's all. And if I agree, then we never speak again. You go back to being a judge. I go back to my business. Everyone survives. Another pause. Then, fine. But Valieri, if you're lying about any of this, I'm not. The call ended. 30 minutes passed before the third response came. Not a call, a text from Agent Marcus Webb. We need to talk, in person, alone, tomorrow. 10 a.m. Location TBD. Seraphina read it over Dominic's shoulder. He's biting, or setting a trap. Either way, it's movement. That's what we need. Dominic typed a response. Blackthorn Cafe, corner booth. Come alone. The reply was immediate. You come alone too. No weapons, no backup, just information. Dominic looked at Seraphina. He wants to flip me. Use whatever's in that recording to pressure me into giving up bigger targets. Then give him what he wants. Not truth. Just enough to make him question everything Celeste told him. And if he arrests me on the spot? He won't. Not until he knows what else you have. Not until he's sure the recording is real. She paused. Besides, we need him confused. Need him pulling resources away from hunting you and toward investigating Celeste. Even if it's temporary, it buys us time. Antonio entered. Celeste just left her building again, moving fast, 3-car convoy, heavy security. Where's she going? Unknown, but she looks pissed. Good. Seraphina checked her phone. Still nothing from Celeste directly. She's regrouping, trying to figure out how much damage we've done. It's substantial, Antonio said. Morrison's campaign just released a statement saying they're reevaluating their strategic partnerships. That's political speak for dropping her. One down. Salvatore's been quiet, though. Too quiet. That was concerning. Men like Salvatore didn't stay quiet unless they were planning something worse. Dominic's phone rang again. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. What? You son of a bitch! Celeste's voice was pure venom. You think you're clever? You think that recording means anything? I think it means your career is over. My career? She laughed, sharp and broken. You just declared war on everyone I've ever worked with, every alliance I've built, every person who depends on me staying powerful. A pause. Congratulations, Dominic. You just made yourself the primary target of half the political establishment in this state. Better than being your puppet. I was never trying to control you. I was trying to destroy you. There's a difference. Her voice dropped to something colder. And now I'm going to finish the job, starting with your wife. The line went dead. Seraphina felt ice flood her veins. She's coming for me. Not if we get to her first, Dominic said. No, this is good. This is what we wanted. Her angry, her desperate, her making threats she'll have to follow through on. She just threatened to kill you. And now we know for sure she'll make a move tomorrow night. Seraphina's hands were steady despite the adrenaline screaming through her system. We use that. We prepare. We turn the gala into the endgame. Antonio pulled up building schematics on his laptop. The winter gala is at the Belmore Hotel, ballroom on the 3rd floor. 2 primary entrances, emergency exits on the east and west sides. Security will be tight because of the high-profile guests. What's our coverage? Dominic asked. I can get 15 people inside as catering staff and security, another 5 in the parking structure, 3 watching the exits from across the street. Not enough. It's what we have. Most of our people are dealing with the fires Celeste and Salvatore keep starting across the city. Dominic rubbed his face. Exhaustion was starting to show through the armor. We need more. We need better, Seraphina corrected. Not more people. Better positioning, better intelligence, better timing. You sound like Celeste. I learned from her. Might as well use it. She studied the schematics. What if we don't just react? What if we control the entire evening? Make Celeste come to us on our terms? How? By announcing something. Something public. Something she can't ignore. Seraphina's mind raced through possibilities. What if I hold a press conference before the gala? Say I'm making a statement about corruption in Blackthorn's political establishment. Hint that I have evidence. Create so much attention that Celeste has to shut me down before I can speak. You'd be painting a target on your back. The target's already there. This just makes it more visible. And more urgent. She'll come at you with everything she has. Exactly. Which means we'll know where she is and what she's planning. No more guessing. No more waiting for her to make the first move. Dominic stared at her. You're serious. Completely. You want to stand in front of cameras and basically dare Celeste to kill you. I want to force her hand. Make her move before she's ready. Before she's had time to plan something perfect. Seraphina met his eyes. She's controlled every moment of this war from the beginning. Time to take that control away from her. The room was silent except for the hum of equipment and the distant sound of the city breathing. Antonio spoke first. It's insane. But it might work, Dominic added quietly. It will work. Because Celeste taught me one thing above everything else. Confidence is half the battle. The person who acts like they're winning usually does. Seraphina pulled out her phone. I'll schedule the press conference for 4 o'clock tomorrow. That gives me 6 hours before the gala. 6 hours for her to panic. 6 hours for her to plan something desperate. 6 hours for you to get killed before any of this happens. Then we make sure I don't. She looked at Antonio. I need security. Real security. Not just guards. People who can spot trouble before it arrives. I'll assign my best people. And I need you to leak the press conference to the right people. Make sure Celeste knows about it. Make sure she knows I'm about to burn her entire operation down. That's a death warrant. It's bait. She turned to Dominic. And while she's focused on me, you move against Salvatore. Hit his operations, his money, his people. Make him bleed so hard he can't support Celeste anymore. You're suggesting we fight a war on 2 fronts. I'm suggesting we end this war tomorrow. One way or another. Her voice was steady, final. Because I'm tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of being hunted. Tomorrow night, we become the hunters. And we don't stop until everyone who tried to destroy us is buried." The words hung in the air like a declaration. Dominic looked at his wife. This woman who'd transformed from invisible to unstoppable in less than a year, and felt something shift in his chest.
Fear, pride, love, all tangled together. "Okay," he said quietly. "We do it your way. But Seraphina? Yeah? After tomorrow, no matter what happens, we're leaving Blackthorn. We're taking whatever's left of this empire and we're building something new somewhere else, somewhere clean." "You'd leave? After everything you've built here?"
"I'd burn it all down to keep you alive, every building, every alliance, every dollar." He stepped closer. "You're the only thing that matters anymore, the only thing worth protecting." Seraphina felt tears threaten, pushed them back down. "Tell me that again when we survive tomorrow." "I will." They spent the rest of the night preparing. Seraphina wrote her press conference statement, carefully worded. Vague enough to avoid lawsuits, but specific enough to terrify Celeste. Every sentence designed to force a reaction. Dominic coordinated strikes against Salvatore's operations. Precise. Surgical. Designed to cripple without exposing his own people too much. Antonio positioned security, studied schematics, ran scenarios until his eyes went red. By dawn, the plan was set. By noon, the press conference was announced. By 2 o'clock, Seraphina's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, curious politicians, anonymous threats. She ignored them all. At 3:30, she dressed for war. Not the black dress from the first gala, not the emerald from the dinner with Salvatore. White. Stark white. Like she was daring them to stain it with her blood. Hair severe. Makeup minimal. Nothing soft. Nothing apologetic. She looked in the mirror and saw someone she barely recognized. Someone dangerous. Someone ready. Antonio drove her to the press conference. 3 cars for security. 2 in front, 1 behind. Every route calculated to avoid ambush points. They arrived at the hotel where she'd scheduled the event. Cameras already set up, reporters milling around, security checking credentials. Seraphina stepped out of the car and felt every eye turn toward her. She walked through the crowd like she owned the entire city. Inside, the conference room was packed. Cameras, recording equipment, faces she recognized from news broadcasts. She stepped up to the podium, adjusted the microphone, looked directly into the cameras.
"My name is Seraphina Vale. For the past year, I've been invisible. A ghost in a city that eats ghosts. But today, that ends. Today, I'm going to tell you about corruption that reaches from the criminal underworld into the highest levels of political power. About a conspiracy to destroy innocent people through manipulation, blackmail, and violence. About people you trust who've been lying to you for years." She paused. "Let the weight settle. I have evidence, recordings, financial documents, names, everything you need to understand how Blackthorn really works. And tonight, at the Winter Gala, I'm going to present all of it, publicly, undeniably, to everyone who needs to know." The room erupted with questions, shouted demands for details, camera flashes like artillery fire. Seraphina smiled. "See you tonight." She walked out before anyone could stop her. Made it to the car with her heart hammering and her hands shaking and the certainty that she'd just signed her own death warrant. Antonio drove fast. Back to the warehouse where Dominic was waiting. He grabbed her the second she walked through the door, held her like she might disappear. "That was insane. That was necessary. Celeste is going to come at you with everything she has. I know. Salvatore will too, and everyone else who doesn't want that evidence public. I know." He pulled back, looked at her face. "You're not scared. I'm terrified, but I'm also done being their victim." She touched his face. "After tonight, it's over. One way or another. Either we win or we die trying. I vote for winning." "Me too." They had 4 hours until the gala. 4 hours to finalize positioning, 4 hours to check weapons and routes and contingencies. 4 hours until everything they'd built led to this moment. At 7 o'clock, Seraphina dressed in the white gown again, added jewelry that was really tracker devices, added shoes that had knives hidden in the heels, added a clutch that was reinforced to stop bullets. She looked like a bride. She felt like a soldier. Antonio appeared at her door, cars ready, security's in position.
Dominic's already at the venue with his people. Any movement from Celeste? She's been dark all day. No communication, no sightings, nothing. That was concerning. Celeste never went dark unless she was planning something catastrophic. And Salvatore? At his club, surrounded by security. But he's sending people to the gala, 20 at least, maybe more. So they're both coming. Looks like it. Good. Let's end this. The drive to the Belmore Hotel felt like moving through a dream. Streets she recognized. Buildings she'd seen 1,000 times. All of it foreign now. All of it sharp with potential violence. They arrived at 8. Fashionably late. Perfectly calculated. Seraphina stepped out of the car onto red carpet and camera flashes and the weight of every eye in Blackthorn. She walked into the hotel alone. Through the lobby, where security checked her clutch but missed the knife in her shoe. Into the elevator, where a couple whispered about her press conference. Up to the 3rd floor, where the ballroom doors stood open and music poured out like honey mixed with poison. She paused at the entrance, took a breath, and walked into the gala like she was walking into war. The ballroom exploded with whispers. Every head turned. Every conversation died. Every person in the room suddenly focused on the woman in white who just threatened to burn their entire world down. Seraphina descended the staircase with her heart trying to escape through her throat, and her hands steady despite the adrenaline screaming through her system. Across the room she saw Dominic, dressed in a tuxedo that made him look like violence wrapped in silk. Their eyes met. He nodded once. "I'm here. I've got you." She nodded back. "Let's finish this." Then she saw Celeste, standing near the bar, dressed in black, looking at Seraphina with eyes that promised death. Next to her, Salvatore Moretti, smiling like he'd already won, and behind them, moving through the crowd, at least a dozen people who worked for them. Positioned. Ready. This was it. The end game. Seraphina walked toward them anyway, through the crowd that parted like water, through the stares and whispers and barely concealed hostility, through the fear trying to lock her legs. She stopped 10 feet from Celeste and Salvatore. "Nice party," Seraphina said. Celeste's smile was razor sharp. "Enjoy it while you can. It's the last one you'll ever attend." "That a threat?" "It's a promise." "Funny, I was about to say the same thing to you." The music kept playing, people kept dancing, the world kept turning while 2 women stood facing each other across the space between mentor and betrayal. "You think you've won," Celeste said quietly. "You think that recording means anything. You think threats and publicity will protect you. I think you're terrified. I think your entire operation is collapsing. I think you made one critical mistake." "What's that?" "You underestimated me. You saw a broken girl desperate for guidance, and you thought you could shape her into whatever weapon you needed. But you forgot something important." "What?" "Weapons have a tendency to fire in unexpected directions." Celeste's expression went cold. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe, but you'll be too dead to care." Salvatore laughed. "I like her. She's got style." "She's got a death wish," Celeste corrected. "Same thing in our world." Across the room, Dominic moved closer. His people shifted position. Antonio appeared near the east exit. The board was set, all the pieces in place. Seraphina smiled. "See you on the other side, Celeste?" She turned to walk away. Behind her, Celeste's voice cut through the music. "You know what your husband's biggest weakness is?" Seraphina stopped, didn't turn around. "He thinks love makes him stronger, but really it just gives people like me something to destroy." Now Seraphina turned, looked at the woman who'd taught her everything except mercy. "You're right. Love is a weakness. The kind of weakness that makes people do insane things. The kind of weakness that turns invisible wives into unstoppable forces. The kind of weakness that burns entire empires down just to save one person. And you don't have anyone you love enough to die for, which means you've already lost." The words landed like prophecy. Then the lights went out. The ballroom plunged into darkness. Screams erupted. Glass shattered. Bodies collided. Seraphina dropped to the floor. Felt hands grab her. Fought back with the knife from her shoe. Felt it connect. Heard someone cry out. Emergency lights flickered on. Dim, bloody red. The ballroom was chaos. People running, security shouting, somewhere a gun fired, then another. Seraphina scrambled toward where she'd last seen Dominic, felt bullets tear through the air above her head, felt her dress rip, felt terror and adrenaline merge into something that tasted like electricity. Someone grabbed her arm. She spun. Ready to fight. Dominic. Move! He dragged her toward the emergency exit. Behind them, more gunfire. More screams. They burst through the door into a stairwell. Ran down. 2 flights. 3. Hit the ground floor and ran for the parking structure. The car was waiting. Engine running. Antonio at the wheel. They dove into the back seat. Antonio hit the gas before the doors even closed. What the hell happened? Seraphina demanded. Ambush. They cut the power. Had people positioned throughout the ballroom. It was a coordinated hit. Casualties? Unknown, but it's bad. Dominic was on his phone. Status? Now. A pause. How many? Another pause. His face went dark. Pull back. Everyone. We're regrouping. He ended the call. Looked at Seraphina. 6 of our people are dead. 8 injured. Celeste and Salvatore got out clean. They had it planned from the beginning. The gala was a trap. For both of us. They let us think we were setting the trap, but they were 3 steps ahead the whole time. Seraphina felt something cold settle in her chest. So what now? Now we finish this, but not their way. Our way. Dominic pulled out a different phone, one she'd never seen before. I was hoping to avoid this, but they've left us no choice. Avoid what? He dialed a number, waited, then, it's me. I need the contingency. Everything. Tonight. A pause. Yes, I'm sure. No going back after this. He ended the call, looked at Seraphina with eyes that had gone empty. What did you just do? She asked. I just burned down everything I've built. Every alliance, every territory, every compromise I've made to maintain peace. His voice was flat. As of right now, Blackthorn goes to war. Total war. And it doesn't end until Celeste and Salvatore are dead. Dominic, no more half measures. No more strategic retreats. They wanted a war? They're going to get one. The car screamed through Blackthorn's streets, and behind them, the city began to burn. Blackthorn burned. Not metaphorically. Actually burned. Seraphina watched from the car window as orange flames licked up the side of a building in the warehouse district. Smoke rose into the night sky like the city was exhaling its last breath. Sirens wailed from every direction. The carefully maintained peace Dominic had spent years building was collapsing in real time. What did you do? She asked again. Dominic stared straight ahead, his face carved from exhausted stone. I activated every sleeper cell, every dormant alliance, every person who owed me a favor or feared me enough to move when I called. His voice was flat, empty. Salvatore's operations are being hit simultaneously across 12 locations. His money, his product, his people, everything. And Celeste? Her office building is surrounded, every exit blocked, every connection severed. She's trapped. You're going to kill them both. Yes. The word hung in the air like a verdict. Antonio pulled the car into an underground garage beneath a building Seraphina didn't recognize. They descended 3 levels deep. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, the smell of concrete and oil and something darker. The car stopped in front of a reinforced door. Stay here, Dominic said. No. Seraphina, no. We finish this together. That was the deal. She grabbed his arm, forced him to look at her. You don't get to protect me now, not after everything. His jaw worked. Then he nodded. They entered the building through corridors that felt like descending into something's throat. Industrial, cold, the kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. A command center had been set up in what looked like an old factory floor. Computers, communications equipment, maps with red markers spreading across Blackthorn like a disease. 20 of Dominic's people working with surgical precision. A man approached, tall, scarred, eyes that had seen too much violence. Status, Dominic demanded. Salvatore's club is on fire. 3 of his warehouses destroyed. 2 more under siege. We've eliminated approximately 40% of his operational capacity in the last 2 hours. Casualties? Theirs or ours? Both. Theirs, significant. Ours, 12 dead, 23 injured. The man's voice never wavered. Just numbers. Just math. Salvatore himself is barricaded in his penthouse with approximately 30 guards, heavily armed, fortified position. And Celeste?
Still in her office building, 5th floor. She hasn't tried to leave. We have snipers on adjacent buildings. Ground team ready to breach on your order. Dominic looked at Seraphina. Last chance to walk away. From what? From watching me become exactly what everyone always said I was. A monster. A killer. Someone who burns the world down to win. She stepped closer, took his face in her hands, made him see her.
You think I don't know what you are? I've known since the courthouse. Since the first 12 minutes of our marriage when you looked at me like I was furniture. Her voice was steady. But I also know what you became. Someone who tried to protect me even when it made you weak. Someone who chose love over empire. Someone who's about to destroy 2 people who deserve it just to keep me alive. She paused. So no, I'm not walking away. I'm standing right here while you do what needs to be done. Something cracked in his expression, the stone armor finally breaking. I love you, he said, simple, raw. I should have said it weeks ago, should have said it every day since I realized it was true, but I love you, Seraphina, more than this city, more than this empire, more than my own life. I know. She kissed him, soft and brief and tasting like smoke. Now let's end this so we can actually have a life worth loving. Dominic turned to his people. Breach Celeste's building. I want her alive. No exceptions. Anyone who kills her answers to me. And Salvatore, the scarred man asked. I'll handle Salvatore personally. Sir, his penthouse is a fortress. The approach is, I don't care if it's suicide. I'm going in. Prepare a team. He looked at Antonio. You stay with Seraphina. If anything happens to me, you get her out of Blackthorn. Out of the country if necessary. Understood? Understood? No. Seraphina's voice cut through the room. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Yes. Absolutely yes. She moved to stand in front of him. You think I survived this long just to watch you die in some penthouse shootout? You think I became this person just to be protected at the end? Seraphina, this is exactly what it is. The final play. The last move. And I'm making it with you. Her eyes were hard. Final. We started this marriage as strangers. We're ending this war as partners, so either I come with you or I follow you anyway. Your choice. Dominic stared at her, saw the absolute certainty in her face, the transformation complete. You could die. So could you. At least we'll die together. He wanted to argue, wanted to lock her somewhere safe, wanted to preserve the one good thing in his violent world. But he'd learned something in the past year, learned it slowly and painfully and completely. You couldn't cage something wild and expect it to stay soft. Okay, he said quietly, but you stay behind me. You follow my orders, and if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. It was a lie. They both knew it, but it was the lie they needed. 20 minutes later, they were in a convoy of 3 vehicles heading toward Salvatore's building. Dominic had 12 men, all armed, all knowing this might be the last operation they ever ran. Seraphina sat in the back of the lead car with a bulletproof vest that felt too heavy and a gun Antonio had forced into her hands despite her protests. You know how to use this? Antonio had asked. Point and pull the trigger, right? That's the simplified version. Then I know enough. Now she sat holding that gun and wondering if she'd actually be able to fire it when the moment came. Wondering if survival required becoming exactly what she'd spent her whole life trying not to be. The convoy pulled into an alley 3 blocks from Salvatore's building. They exited into the night with weapons drawn and communications equipment crackling. Dominic gathered his team. Salvatore knows we're coming. His people will be positioned at every choke point, every stairwell, every corridor. This won't be clean. This won't be easy. But it ends tonight, one way or another. What about civilians? Someone asked. Building's been evacuated. Salvatore paid to have it cleared. He wants this fight as much as we do. They moved through the darkness like ghosts, through service entrances and emergency stairwells, up 15 floors of concrete and steel in growing tension. The first resistance came on the 16th floor, Salvatore's people, 4 of them, positioned behind makeshift barriers. Gunfire erupted like the world was tearing apart. Seraphina dropped behind cover, felt bullets punch through the wall inches from her head, felt her heart trying to escape through her throat, felt Dominic's hand on her shoulder pushing her lower. "Stay down!" The firefight lasted 30 seconds that felt like hours. When silence finally settled, 2 of Salvatore's men were dead. The other 2 had retreated up the stairwell. One of Dominic's people was bleeding from his shoulder. Another had a graze across his ribs. "Keep moving," Dominic ordered. They climbed through more resistance, more gunfire, more blood. By the 20th floor, 3 of Dominic's men were down, 1 dead, 2 too injured to continue. By the 25th floor, Seraphina had fired her gun twice, once into a wall, once into a man's leg when he came around a corner pointing his weapon at Dominic's back. She'd thrown up immediately after, but she'd pulled the trigger. That was the person she'd become. The penthouse level was the 30th floor. The stairwell door was reinforced steel. Locked, defended. Dominic's demolition expert placed charges. Everyone retreated down 2 flights. The explosion was thunder in a confined space. They rushed back up through smoke and debris, through the destroyed doorway into a corridor lined with expensive artwork and bodies. Salvatore's final defense. It was brutal. Close quarters, no room for strategy, just violence and survival and the terrible mathematics of who could kill faster. Seraphina stayed behind Dominic like he'd ordered, watched him move with practiced efficiency, watched him become the monster everyone had always known existed underneath the expensive suits. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid for him. They reached the penthouse door. It hung open, invitation or trap, hard to tell which. Dominic signaled his remaining people to fan out. Check corners, clear rooms. Inside the penthouse was obscene wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Blackthorn's burning skyline. Art that cost more than lives. Furniture designed for comfort that would never be used. And in the center of the main room, sitting in a leather chair with a gun resting on his lap, Salvatore Moretti. "Dominic." His voice was calm, conversational. "I wondered when you'd arrive. Where are your guards? Dead or fled? Does it matter?" Salvatore smiled. "It's just us now, the way it should have been from the beginning. This didn't have to happen." "Of course it did. You can't have 2 apex predators in the same territory. Eventually, one has to die." He looked at Seraphina. "And you brought your beautiful wife. How romantic. A murder-suicide for the ages." "Let her leave," Dominic said. "This is between us." "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, this whole war started because of her. Because you were stupid enough to care about someone. Stupid enough to show weakness." Salvatore stood slowly. The gun stayed in his hand. "Celeste was right about you. Love made you weak. Love made me desperate. There's a difference." "Not really. Both get you killed." The room was silent except for the distant sound of sirens and violence. Then Salvatore raised his gun. Everything happened at once. Dominic fired first. 3 shots center mass. Salvatore staggered, his gun discharged. Wild, hitting nothing. He collapsed backward into the chair, blood spreading across expensive fabric. Dominic approached, gun still raised, making sure. Salvatore coughed, blood on his lips. "You know what's funny?" "Nothing's funny. I'm dying and Celeste still wins. She'll blame this on you, make you the villain, destroy whatever's left of your reputation." He coughed again, harder. "You can't win, Dominic, not against her. She's too smart, too connected, too—" The words died with him. Seraphina stood in that penthouse with the smell of gunpowder and blood and watched her husband kill someone. Watched him check the body, confirm the death, turn away without emotion. This was the man she had married, the man she'd chosen, the man she loved, a killer. And she was okay with it. That scared her more than anything else. "We need to move," Dominic said. "Celeste is still—" His phone rang. He answered it, listened. His expression went dark. "When?" A pause. "How many?" Another pause. "I'm on my way." He ended the call and looked at Seraphina. Celeste broke out of containment, killed 3 of my people. She's gone. Gone where? Unknown, but she left a message. He showed her his phone. A text from an unknown number. You think you won? You think killing Salvatore changes anything? I'm still out here, still waiting, still planning. And when you finally feel safe again, when you finally think this is over, I'll come for both of you. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. And you'll never see it coming. See, the threat hung between them like prophecy. So what do we do? Seraphina asked. We finish what we started. Dominic made a call. Status on Celeste's building. He listened. Burn it. Everything. Every file. Every piece of evidence. Every connection she built. I want her entire operation erased from Blackthorn. He ended the call and looked at Seraphina. Then we leave. Tonight. We take whatever money we have left and we disappear. Run? Survive. There's a difference. And if she finds us, then we deal with it. But we deal with it together, in a place where we control the terrain, where we see her coming. He pulled her close. I'm done with Blackthorn, done with this empire, done with everything except you. They left the penthouse and its dead crime boss and descended through 30 floors of violence and aftermath. Outside, Blackthorn was still burning, but for the first time in months, Seraphina could breathe. The safe house was 40 miles outside Blackthorn. Farmland, open sky, the kind of nothing that felt like everything after months of urban warfare. They arrived as dawn broke across the horizon, pink and orange and beautiful in a way that felt obscene after so much death. Inside, the house was simple, clean, anonymous, everything designed for people who needed to disappear. Seraphina stood at the window watching sunrise paint the world in colors that shouldn't exist after the night they'd just survived. Behind her, Dominic was on the phone coordinating the final pieces of their exit strategy. Money transfers, false identities, transportation out of the country. They'd lost everything, the empire, the territory, the power, all of it burning behind them. But they were alive, and somehow, that felt like winning. Dominic ended his call and came to stand beside her. They looked at the sunrise together without speaking. Finally, Seraphina broke the silence. Do you regret it? Everything we did, everything we destroyed? No. Not even a little? I regret buying you to settle a debt. I regret the year I wasted ignoring you. I regret not seeing who you were from the beginning. He turned to face her. But burning down an empire to keep you alive? I'd do it again, every time, without hesitation. Even knowing Celeste is still out there? Still planning? Especially knowing that, because now we fight on our terms. Not hers, not Blackthorn's. Ours. Seraphina leaned against him, felt his arms wrap around her, felt safe for the first time in months. What happens now? She asked. Now we disappear, become different people, build different lives, something clean, something ours. And when Celeste comes, if she comes, we'll be ready. They stood there as the sun climbed higher, as the world turned and Blackthorn burned and their old lives became ash. 3 days later, they were in a different country. New names, new faces, new identities built on money Dominic had been hiding for years. They rented a small apartment overlooking the ocean. Nothing fancy, nothing that drew attention, just space and air and the sound of waves that washed away the memory of sirens. Seraphina spent the first week just breathing, learning how to exist without adrenaline, without fear, without constantly looking over her shoulder. It was harder than surviving had been. Dominic was the same, maybe worse. He paced, checked windows, answered phones that never rang. On day 8, Seraphina found him on the balcony at 3 a.m, staring at the ocean like it might hold answers. Can't sleep? She asked. Doesn't feel right. Being this far from everything. Being safe doesn't feel right. Being useless doesn't feel right. He turned to look at her. I spent 20 years building an empire, building power, building something that mattered, and now it's gone. All of it. And He stopped, jaw working. I don't know who I am without it. Seraphina moved to stand beside him, took his hand. You're the man who chose me over everything else. You're the man who burned his entire world down just to keep me alive. You're the man I love. She paused. And maybe that's enough. Maybe we don't need empires or power or anything except this. Each other, alive, free. You really believe that? I'm trying to. He pulled her close, pressed his forehead against hers. I'm sorry I brought you into this world. I brought myself into it. The second I decided to stop being decorative and become dangerous. You succeeded. We both did. They stood on that balcony with the ocean breathing below them and the night sky spread above them and the ghost of their old lives burning somewhere behind them. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was the beginning of something that might become peace eventually, if they were lucky, if Celeste never found them, if the past stayed buried. A month passed, then 2. Seraphina found work consulting for a small financial firm. Nothing criminal, just legitimate businesses trying to maximize legitimate returns. It was boring and clean and exactly what she needed. Dominic struggled more. A man built for violence didn't transition easily to domesticity. But he tried. Started running every morning, started reading books, started learning how to be someone other than a crime lord. They built routines. Morning coffee on the balcony, evening walks on the beach. Dinner together every night with conversation that wasn't about survival or strategy or violence. It felt like playing house, but slowly, painfully slowly, it started feeling real. 3 months in, Seraphina came home to find Dominic cooking dinner. Actual cooking. Not ordering in, not reheating. Cooking. What's this? She asked. Attempt at normalcy. He gestured to the stove. Pasta. Probably terrible, but I'm trying. She kissed him, long and deep and full of something that tasted like gratitude. It's perfect. They ate dinner on the balcony, watched the sunset, talked about normal things, work, weather, the couple next door who fought too loud. For the first time since their marriage began, they felt like an actual couple. Not a transaction, not a strategy, not a survival partnership. Just 2 people trying to build something real from the wreckage of something terrible. Later that night, Seraphina woke to an empty bed. She found Dominic in the living room, sitting in the dark with a laptop open. The screen's glow made his face look ghostly. What are you doing? She asked. Research. On what? He turned the laptop toward her. News articles, reports, updates from Blackthorn. Celeste Arden had vanished completely. No sightings, no communications, no trace. She's planning something, Dominic said, or she's dead. Men like Salvatore die. Women like Celeste disappear and wait. There's a difference. So what do? We stay ready. We stay careful. He stopped, rubbed his face. I can't stop thinking about it. About her out there. About the threat hanging over us. Seraphina closed the laptop, knelt in front of him, made him look at her. Listen to me. Celeste doesn't control our lives anymore. We're not in Blackthorn. We're not in that world. We're here. We're safe. We're together. She paused. And we can spend every day waiting for her to appear, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for our past to destroy our future. Or we can actually live, actually try to be happy, actually build something worth protecting. And if she comes, then we deal with it, but we don't let fear of her coming ruin what we have now. Dominic pulled her close, held her like she might disappear. When did you become the strong one? He asked. I've always been strong. You just finally noticed. I noticed at the gala, when you walked in wearing white like you were daring the world to stain it. And did it? It tried. But you're still here. Still whole. Still, his voice cracked. Still the best thing that ever happened to me. They stayed like that, holding each other in the darkness. 2 people who'd survived a war and were trying to remember how to be human. It wasn't easy, but it was possible. And sometimes possible was enough. 6 months after leaving Blackthorn, Seraphina woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee and the sound of waves. She stretched, felt muscles that no longer carried permanent tension, felt a mind that no longer raced through contingencies and survival plans. She was healing. They both were. She found Dominic on the balcony, reading a book, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Morning, he said without looking up. Morning. She poured coffee, joined him in the other chair. What are you reading? Philosophy. trying to understand why humans do terrible things to each other. Find any answers? Not really. Mostly just confirms that people are complicated and broken and trying their best. Sounds about right. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that only existed between people who'd been to hell and back together. Then Seraphina's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped. She answered it anyway. Hello? Mrs. Valieri. A woman's voice. Professional. Unfamiliar. This is Agent Marcus Webb with the FBI. We met. I remember. I'm calling to inform you that the investigation into Celeste Arden has concluded. She was found 3 days ago in a safe house in Romania. Deceased. Apparent suicide. Though the evidence suggests... He paused. Well, that's not important. What's important is she's no longer a threat. To anyone. The words landed like a verdict. You're sure? Seraphina asked. Positive. Fingerprints. DNA. Body's been positively identified. Celeste Arden is dead. And the investigation into your husband, officially closed. The evidence Celeste provided was tainted, illegally obtained, fruit of the poisonous tree. Everything gets thrown out. He paused. You're both free to return to the United States if you wish. No outstanding warrants, no pending charges. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank whoever made sure Celeste's operation got exposed, whoever sent those recordings. That's what broke the case open. The call ended. Seraphina set down her phone with hands that shook slightly. Dominic was watching her. What is it? Celeste is dead. The words hung in the air like smoke finally clearing. How? Suicide. Or something dressed up to look like suicide. Webb didn't seem sure. And the investigation? Closed. We're clear. We can go home if we want. Dominic was quiet for a long time. Then, do we want to? Seraphina looked at him. This man who'd been a stranger, then a husband, then a partner, then the person she loved most in the world. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me wants to go back, rebuild, reclaim what we lost. But another part wants to stay here, stay clean, stay away from everything that almost destroyed us. Yes. So what do we do? Seraphina looked out at the ocean, at the horizon where water met sky and everything was possible. I think... She stopped, started again. I think we build something new, not in Blackthorn, not in the old world, but here, or somewhere like here. Something that's actually ours. Not built on violence or fear or survival, just... She searched for the word. Just life. Normal life. The kind where we wake up and have coffee and go to work and come home and eat dinner and watch the sunset and go to bed without wondering if tomorrow we'll be alive. That sounds boring. Good. I want boring. I've had enough excitement for 10 lifetimes. Dominic smiled. You? The woman who walked into a gala and declared war on half of Blackthorn's elite? You want boring? I want peace. There's a difference. He reached for her hand, held it like it was something precious. Okay, he said quietly. We stay. We build. We become people who aren't defined by what we survived. Think that's possible? With you, everything's possible. They sat on that balcony as the sun climbed higher, as the world turned and Blackthorn became memory, and their future spread out before them like an unmarked road. It wasn't the ending Seraphina had imagined on her wedding day, standing in that courthouse signing papers that felt like a prison sentence, but it was the ending she'd earned, the ending she'd fought for, the ending where she wasn't invisible or decorative or someone's debt wrapped in silk. She was Seraphina Vale, the woman who'd been bought like furniture and who'd become unstoppable. The woman who'd survived a war and chosen love over safety. The woman who'd looked at darkness and decided to become her own light. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 1 year later, Seraphina stood in front of her own consulting firm. A real one. Legitimate. Successful. Built from nothing with intelligence and strategy and the confidence Celeste had taught her minus the cruelty. The sign above the door read, Vale Financial Consulting. Not Valieri. Vale. Her maiden name. The name she'd had before marriage and debt and violence. She'd reclaimed it, reclaimed herself. Inside, she had 6 employees. Smart people. Good people. People who worked hard and went home to families and never wondered if tomorrow they'd be alive. It was boring and profitable and exactly what she wanted. Dominic had started his own business too, security consulting, legitimate security, helping businesses protect themselves from threats without becoming threats themselves. He was good at it, better than he'd expected. Turned out 20 years of surviving violence taught you how to prevent it. They lived in a house now, not an apartment, a real house with a yard and neighbors and a mortgage. They had friends, normal friends, people who didn't carry guns or plot murders or operate criminal empires. They had a life. And on their 1-year anniversary of leaving Blackthorn, Dominic took Seraphina to dinner at a restaurant overlooking the ocean. They ordered wine and food and talked about work and future plans and whether they should adopt a dog. Normal conversation, normal life. After dessert, Dominic reached across the table and took her hand. "I need to tell you something." "What?" "I love you. Not because you survived with me, not because you saved me, not because you're beautiful or smart or dangerous." He paused. "I love you because you're you, because you took the worst thing that ever happened to you, being sold to settle a debt, and turned it into the catalyst for becoming unstoppable. Because you refused to be invisible even when invisibility would have been easier. Because you chose us even when it meant choosing war." Seraphina felt tears threaten, pushed them back. "I love you too. For the record." "I know, but I needed to say it, needed you to hear it, needed—" His voice caught. "Needed you to know that marrying you was the best decision I never made, because your father made it for me. And somehow that terrible transaction became the thing that saved both our lives." Poetic. Honest. They sat there as the sun set and the ocean breathed and the world kept turning. 2 people who'd been strangers, then enemies, then allies, then partners, then lovers. Now just 2 people trying to be happy and succeeding, mostly. Later that night, Seraphina stood on their back porch looking at stars. Dominic came out to join her. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different everything is. How a year ago we were running for our lives, and now we're—" She gestured around. "Here, normal, safe. You miss it, the danger?" "No, but sometimes I miss the person I was becoming, the dangerous one, the unstoppable one. That person's still here. She just doesn't need to fight anymore." He pulled her close. "That's not weakness. That's winning. Knowing when the war's over and it's okay to put down your weapons. And if another war comes, then we pick up our weapons again. But until then," he kissed her forehead, "until then, we get to just be us." Seraphina leaned into him, felt his heartbeat steady against her back, felt safe and loved and whole in a way she'd never expected to feel. The city of Blackthorn had never slept. But she didn't live there anymore. She lived here, in this quiet place, with this complicated man, building this simple life. And every morning when she woke up, she chose him again. Not because she had to, not because of debt or obligation or survival, because she wanted to. Because somewhere in the violence and the chaos and the desperate fight to stay alive, she'd fallen in love with the man who'd bought her. And he'd fallen in love with the wife he'd ignored. And together they'd become something neither of them could have been alone. They'd become free. Above them, the stars burned like distant fires, like memories of a city that had tried to destroy them, like proof that even in darkness there was light if you knew where to look. Seraphina looked up at those stars and smiled. She'd spent a year being invisible, 3 months becoming dangerous, 6 months surviving war, and now she was simply being herself. The woman who'd started as decorative and become unstoppable. The woman who'd chosen her own light. The woman who'd learned that sometimes the best revenge wasn't destruction. It was happiness. And she was happy. Finally, completely, undeniably happy. That was the ending she'd earned. And it was perfect. The end.